Hello everyone, welcome to the Lightbringers, a Guild Wars 2 podcast, which is sometimes on every 2 weeks. Unfortunately, it hasn't been recently because there's been loads of stuff, coronavirus, and me going back to school and going back to school online as well, which has been a massive change of life and everything else. So I've been taking a break from podcasts for the last month, and I'm back now. And I have 3 guests, 3 awesome guests.
Hello.
There's a hello. And waving. And also
I'm the only one.
No, and they didn't want to say hello. They were just like, no. I didn't want to be here. It's fine. It's fine.
I got dragged into this. I thought we were just like hanging, playing some Guild Wars, but it turns out it's a podcast.
Yeah, we're actually going to play Guild Wars and that's it. We're just going to talk about it while you're just listening or watching. Okay, so if you are listening or watching from wherever you are, this is live on twitch.tv/Jebro in Unity on the, what's the date say, 24th of April 2020, in a time of our lives where we're all sitting at home during a massive pandemic. So I hope you're good and safe and well at home and doing whatever you're doing in a way that's interesting. I don't know how to put what I was going to say there. And I have 3 awesome guests with me. I have, first of all, BirdofChess. How are you doing? Welcome back. Or Rook. However you would like to. I'm not sure. I'm still not sure which one to call you.
You know, it's just like a fun little game that I play, a little test for everybody. And I won't tell you which one you have to pick to pass the test, but no, I'm kidding. Rook is fine. But
I'm in school. I don't want more tests. Goddamn.
Welcome to the surprise internet course. No. Which one is my name? No, we go by Rook. I go by Rook, but I do stream at twitch.tv/BirdofChess. I'm really glad to be back. I had so much fun talking about the X-Pack news, and obviously, for anybody who doesn't know, Jeb and I have met a few times, and it's always been great. I am an ArenaNet partner as well, and I stream a lot, and we play a lot of different MMOs, but Guild Wars 2 is one of my absolute favorites. So we do a lot of community events. We've got an active guild. We do a lot of raid training for people, and we're always happy to see some new faces and get to keep everybody company, especially during these crazy times. But we're doing well here, and I hope you are too, Jeb.
I am indeed. Thank you. Yeah, we have met a few times. Many regrets, but other than, you know.
What?
I mean, sorry. It's been very good every time.
Mm-hmm.
It's been amazing.
Yeah, sure. Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry. Ignore me. But what do you? So, you told us your channel. What's your Twitter? Do you have Twitter or YouTube or anything else like that you can tell us about? Or
yeah, you can also find me at BirdofChess on Twitter and Instagram.
Amazing. All the things.
Me.
Good stuff. It is awesome to see you and have you back again. I will inevitably get you back on in the future as well. So thank you very much. This is a bit last minute as well. For like everyone. So I was like really appreciative that people actually wanted to come on. So that was good. Cool. AngryZorric. Yes. He doesn't have a camera. I'm actually sorting out an image for him. But if you're listening to this on Spotify and Anchor and everything else, it doesn't matter. But you know, sometimes I like to see his face. That's all I'm gonna say. Sometimes that's nice. How you doing, sir? You all right?
I'm doing okay. Yeah. Can't wait to get into this. Just new player, don't know how to turn on my camera. That's how.
New players don't know how to turn on their camera. It's just it. What do you do? Where are you? Like, what are you doing? Twitch streamer? Like, what do you do in life? Like, what's going on? Content creation wise?
Yeah, so I'm a variety streamer here on Twitch. Been playing all sorts of things. Right now, we're about to finish up Octopath Traveler, but I'm also an ArenaNet partner. Do that Guild Wars 2 every once in a while. Get salty with it as much as possible, and then do Stardew Valley, stuff like that. And then, of course, I have the Twitter. Got some stuff in the works for YouTube. Should I have said that? I probably should have said that. But yeah, trying to get that stuff ironed out and then entertain the masses. That's my goal. The beard will be back at some point.
I was gonna say, I mean, it's there now. I put it on the screen. It dominates. It dominates.
It's powerful.
Yeah, it is powerful. Look at that. That's a good piece of artwork right there. I'm quite happy it's there now. Is it AngryZorric, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, everything like that? My OnlyFans?
Minus the Snapchat, but yes, Twitter, AngryZorric.
Awesome. It is a pleasure to have you back, sir. Was also on. We've heard of. I think you're on at the same time as well, so I've actually got you back at the same time again. I thought, hey, you know what? We might actually have a podcast where it doesn't go. I was gonna say tits up. That's not swearing. That's not swearing. That's just a phrase.
No, you're good.
I've
That's
said
just
that,
a turn of phrase.
I've said that to everyone before in polite conversation. That's just an English phrase. Okay, Zorric, thank you very much for joining us once again. And then we have a newcomer, Malthanis. How are you doing, sir? Tell us a bit about yourself. What do you do? Wherever in life.
Well, I stream on twitch.tv/madrealms with 2 A's in the mad. Twitter, madrealms, also Twitter @talk. My Twitter is Malthanis MMO. Well, you'll see me retweet and complain about sometimes when I do tweet because I tend to forget that the thing exists. My quarantine has been such that I completed the Chalice of Tears jumping puzzle last
Well done.
There you go.
night.
Don't know that.
Had to do it twice because I forgot the coins.
Oh.
Oh.
That's sigh from Zorric.
And I did it on my Guardian too.
Now, is your guardian a Norn or a Char? Because that's the real challenge mode.
No, I'm not that crazy. But
I like how this is like, and tell us about yourself. Twitch, and I did this jump puzzle.
See, but that's the thing. It's like
This is a
I'm
major
finally
thing.
getting back to doing all of those jumping puzzles and achievements that I missed,
Yeah.
and it's just like, okay, I need to do this, and then just get it done and be over with, and we'll be good. And that's what last night was, and that was infuriating. And I'm glad I never have to go back. But I'm happy to be here.
There you go. And what? So you do podcasts as well? This is not something that you're new to.
Yes, we've me and the 3 other members of the Talking Script crew. We're doing a podcast, Talking Script, for 5+ years. We started just before the Heart of Thorns teaser, back in the 1.5, 2 years of Silver Wastes. That was fun with trying to extrapolate everything that we could turn a 3. I don't know how we turned the teaser into a 3-hour podcast, but we did.
I think excitement and hype and joy at something new is a real thing. So
well, I'm gonna have to go back and watch or listen to the expansion stuff that you guys did, because that was back in the time when it was okay. What does expansion mean to Guild Wars 2?
I mean, we had like a snippet at the end of a post, and it was just like that was nothing, and it was just like, okay, well,
yeah, here we're working on an expansion. Here's a picture.
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, oh yeah, there was a picture as well. Yeah, the picture says 1,000 words. Like was the phrase? I can't remember the saying, something like that. Pictures can say. Someone will know, reader probably. Awesome to have you here as well. Talking Script, amazing show. Definitely go and watch it. Look it up. You can Google Talking Script. Don't do shirt because or skirts. Talking skirts. Yeah. Don't look that up on Google. don't do that. It was an accident. It was just like it just auto corrected it. And talking skirt is actually a thing. Apparently. I did
not know this, and now I am morbidly curious.
Yeah.
What kind of thing, though? What kind of thing
I'm
is
not
it?
sure about that. It just said talking skirt, and it was just there, and I was like, I'm not clicking that because this is my work PC. And
we all quietly Google in the background.
I don't remember. Anyway, today's podcast is going to be about, well, just as a little bit of backstory, I suppose. There's apparently loads of new players coming into Guild Wars 2 at the moment, especially because, kind of a little bit because of, I guess, like an expansion. I guess because, back in August, they made Heart of Thorns come with Path of Fire. they have had some hype around the game recently. They've done a lot of stuff with PvP, kind of like balance-wise. They had the PvE stuff recently, which was the new kind of the episode 1 stuff, which was okay. And then they had the recent patch as well, which is actually really good. I enjoyed the newest stuff, the new stuff. That was really good. But yeah, so there's a big reinsurgency of people coming into the game, and that is from different MMOs. I know streamers-wise, there's people coming over. So it's always quite indicative of like large amounts of people coming into the game. So that's good. You guys had that experience as well? You get more people in your chats, or you getting more people kind of talking about coming to Guild Wars still? I don't know if anyone wants to jump in and kind of confirm what I'm thinking, or if I'm just talking absolute rubbish.
Yeah, absolute.
Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say absolute rubbish. Yeah, 100.
Terrible.
No, I'm kidding. Please go ahead.
I had a couple people asking, what should I play? And that was the couple things, which I suppose I've always recommended Warrior for somebody starting the game, if only because I feel like it's I don't say this negatively, but it's the lowest skill floor in Guild Wars 2.
Right.
But from some of the stuff I've seen with builds, I would say that it definitely has a significantly decent skill ceiling. I just remember back when I had no idea what I was doing, and I ran a 5 Signet Warrior in Celestial gear.
That sounds good.
Did you
That
have
sounds like a
fun?
good. Did you
I
enjoy
had
it?
fun. I was just doing open world stuff. I wasn't doing anything serious. I didn't die, which was the whole thing.
Then you nailed it.
Yeah, I mean, I still see people getting stomped on by Jormag, or not Jormag, by Drakkar, and I'm just like, that there's a yellow circle.
Like, George, if you get stomped by Jormag, that's kind of fair.
Yeah, I mean, big ass dragon. So, but I don't know. Like, it worked. And then, people are coming in and they're like, oh, what should I play? How does this play? Just people looking into it, which is also fun to see. I've been in WW, I've done PvE. I was helping a friend of mine level because he just created his account 2 or 3 days ago.
Okay.
So I was streaming that a little bit, not this past week. This past week, we actually did all the paths of Ascalonian catacombs to show him what dungeons are in Guild Wars 2, to show them that he exists, to show him that the dungeons actually exist. But and then previous was a bit of his leveling, and then I think we're going to try and do some fractals this week, because I think fractals boost your base stats to 80.
God, I don't actually remember.
You can do them under 80. Yeah, because when I first came into the game, I did them too. And yeah, I mean, everything you've said is totally right. We've had a bunch of people coming in and asking about the game, or maybe they're drifting over from other MMOs right now, or they're trying to find something new and they're really curious about it. There's been a lot of time where we've just been going over like the basics of stuff, what is this? What are dungeons? We had some people asking about that just this morning, and kind of getting to explain the history of the game to them is so fun. Especially because there is just a lot to kind of explore and do. Mm-hmm. Even, I mean, like you were saying, Chalice of Tears, or, all these different like types of content that are in Guild Wars that I think that as new players are coming in, they're really excited to learn about. So that's been a blast, being able to like welcome people and get them rolled in. And we've had a lot of interest in raids. And I mean, everybody just seems to be kind of picking up and running with it, which is it's such a good thing, and it's so fun because I think that everybody gets reinvigorated by that, like veteran players, new players. I absolutely recommend that people go out and help, like offer to run some of those dungeons for new players. If you see somebody, like offer to go run around with them, because it's a really good time to kind of form those relationships and bonds, and then like take them through into the new expansion when it happens.
There was when there was a big insurgency before, there was loads of players waiting in the first areas, right? As far as I remember, I remember being one of those people, kind of welcoming people into the game. I think like, was it Keswick? Was it Keswick? I can't remember. But there's like loads of players just waiting there, like answering questions and hanging out, which is pretty cool. And, that was actually quite a nice experience. But like, and that sounds good. Like, Malthanis is literally playing with someone who's brand new, like introducing the game. They're just talking about it on stream. How are you, Zorric? You're good.
Yeah,
yeah. Well,
I mean,
you know,
I was just mapping Gindarn the other day really quick to grab a Black Lion key because I felt lucky, and then I did get the Black Lion key in the story there. But when I was running around, there were people everywhere. There were people everywhere. I mean, it was interesting to see. And a lot of them didn't have mounts, which sort of gives you that, oh, yeah, they're leveling a character. They're moving through the maps and that kind of stuff. And of course, I'm running this overpowered level 80 with all this fancy mounts and colors and stuff. And that's probably scaring them half to death.
Did you run around them? Did you run around them with your mount?
No, I was so busy doing the hearts because I hate hearts. So I was that guy. And I'm so sorry for all those new people that came into the game, but I was that guy that was just coming through and just clearing the mobs just so I could finish the heart. And so they're in there, they're like fighting pirates and going down, and I just run through and just everything was dying.
You don't even res them.
And this one guy.
There's 7 million players on the floor, and Zorric's just stamping on them like, I don't need to do the revive daily anymore. They got rid of that.
Listen,
res them. Res those good new
what
players.
Ended up happening is I just cleared a path all the way to the elites, and I left them to fight that. The 5 of them, it was good. They started to go down, so I felt sorry, and I came back and helped killed it. But it just, that's the cool part about Guild Wars 2. When we get new players in, I never got to experience that, going into a zone and seeing like, oh, this level 80 just there suddenly. I never got to experience that. But I know from other MMOs coming into a game, you see somebody flying on this fancy thing or whatever, and they'll be like, oh, when you get to level 60, you'll understand or whatever. Of course, that kind of stuff I think is some of the coolest things you see in MMOs is other people who have gotten somewhere. And so it was fun to run around Gindarn. Other times in the past, I've had people whisper like, where'd you get that or whatever? And you have to explain, well, there's a gym store, or you have to be level 80 and there's this one map later on. And they'll be like, oh, okay. And that's the fun part about Guild Wars 2 is that a lot of people are approachable. While I did Gindarn, I didn't really have that, but it was really cool to see those players sort of follow me through and fight pirates with me and stuff like that. So I did slow down a bit for them. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of new players out there.
Sweet. I wonder if people in the chat as well, if you want to talk about whether or not you've kind of interacted with anyone new to the game as well. And also, hello chat, sorry. We are live. You can see our video and stuff, well, other than AngryZorric. So hello chat, we're not ignoring you. We just tend to kind of talk amongst ourselves and pick things out from chat. So if you have any questions or you want to add anything to this, feel free to do so, please. Might pick little bits and pieces. But if you let us know, and also just maybe, if you're listening to this for the first time and you're a new player, you're thinking about playing the game, just know that there are probably people out there who might help you, or there might be people out there who may stomp on your corpse. I mean, that's AngryZorric.
Don't be the person who stomps on somebody's corpse. It's so funny to me. They're like,
I love how you just linked that together. Don't go standing on people's corpses. It's funny to me.
Hilarious. No, don't do it. It's not so funny.
Okay.
Even if it might be for 1 second.
Right.
But it's funny to me that, like, I think especially if you've been playing for a long time, it's easy to forget at this point that sometimes something that is completely inconsequential to you can literally make a new player's experience. And like one of the things I always reference with this was like the very first time that I ever played WoW years ago, I was this wee baby. I'd never played an MMO. I had no idea what was happening. I had no idea what literally anything in the game was. I was a complete idiot. And that's great because
doesn't mean you're an idiot.
Well, I mean, compared to the veteran,
it's insulting as hell.
Nope.
I'm such an idiot. I can't believe I didn't know how to jump. It's okay, Guild Wars didn't have that. Maybe you played Guild Wars first.
Yeah, I didn't have to worry about jumping in Guild Wars 1, but in WoW, it was very hard to figure out. No, I made that playfully. Like, compared to the knowledge that most players will get over the course of having played that genre of game, I felt like a nincompoop because I didn't know anything. And it wasn't because I didn't want to. It was just because I didn't have the experience with it. So I was running around and learning all this stuff from scratch. And, I had plenty of people who were sassing me as I went. But there was this one person who came up to me at some point and was like, "Welcome, I'm so happy you're in the game." And they gave me 2,000 gold.
What?
And I know, and like I had
And now I am
never
married to
seen-
them.
I had never seen that amount of gold in the game. It like blew my
Wow.
mind. And I played WoW because that like stuck in my head that there was this like amazing thing that people, you know, this connection that people could forge in the game. And as I got more confident in the genre, you know, I felt happy to like pass that on to other players. And this is such a good time to do it. Like the amount of times that I've heard people say, like, I was lying dead in a zone and 6 veteran players ran past me. And I was asking, like, begging in the chat, please God, somebody res me. Like, if you take time to do something, even something that's small, it's really wild how much that can stick with somebody. And like years later now, I still remember that person that gave me 2,000 gold. And it's just those little things that I think can really introduce people to this world that are so fun and make MMOs really unique.
That's a good
One of
story.
One of the things you say there, like rezzing people and stuff. Back in the day, I used to get really bored, and I used to be able to break out on the map and get up on the cliffs in Queensdale,
Okay.
and I would stalk new players to see what they were doing. And when they would go down, I would just come out of nowhere, res them, help them beat the thing. And
Okay.
I mean, one day I
Yeah,
just
'cause
followed.
where is this
I saw
going?
it. It's what I used to do. But it's like
What
it's
a
that
start
kind of
to a
thing.
story.
I looked like Batman.
Rick's
I was
really
going to
fast-
be Batman. I was bored. It was on a Saturday. I decided to stalk a new player for an hour, and they didn't join my guild. It was a disappointing experience for me, but I'm sure it was amazing for them.
Okay.
Why are you so red,
My
Jebro?
fan is sick because it's just funny.
It's
I get
funny,
red
and
when
it's
I'm
also
not.
very warm in this room. So there's that.
I mean, Malthanis, we got a story like that. I need a middle ground. So
I
we go
don't
from one
quite
extreme to the
have
other.
that. My most memorable experience was also in Queensdale, but it was the
I
shadow.
was being stalked by a player.
Batman
That was
guy.
me. I was that
But,
guy.
But it was the Shadow Behemoth, and
Right.
it was a world boss, and it was people working together to fight a world boss, and there wasn't any arguments in map chat about who tagged what first, because that's a thing in other games where
Yeah.
like whoever does the most damage or whoever got the first hit in, they get credit for the kill. They get the loot. Anybody else who hits it gets. It was just really great to see. And honestly, the other thing is coming from World of Warcraft, and Monk in chat, he was the one dragging me on Twitter for wondering how long it would take me to mention WoW. I didn't mention it first. I will admit
It's
that
true,
was
he
one of my,
didn't.
I will mention. I will
Pre-show
admit that
he
was-
did.
yeah, it wasn't recorded yet. But map chat in WoW I turned off like immediately because map chat was never useful.
Yeah.
Map chat in Guild Wars 2 sometimes not so much in Lion's Arch, but most of the time is useful, and you can say stuff in map chat and people will answer you and be helpful. Like Metrica Province daily event completer is one of the dailies today, and there are people tagging up in Metrica, people saying, hey, there's an event here. I tagged up with my mentor tag to, you know, mark an event chain, and that was, I mean, just that. I think that's the thing that's kept me in the game, is people being relatively friendly in Guild Wars 2 in comparison. Granted, it's an MMO and you're going to find the jerks. I will admit that's mostly in PvP and WW, because PvP, any kind of player versus player content is where you're going to find the people that are probably a little too angry for their own heart health. But in general,
I've never heard that one before. That's like, I kind of like that. For their own heart health.
well, I mean, getting angry is not good for your heart. And
No, I know that.
I went
Or
from
your
World
hair.
of Warcraft to League of Legends for a while.
Oh god.
And
And it's like amazing. And you're still here.
Why? Yeah, I'm surprised that you made it through that to even get to Guild Wars 2.
I tell you what, you'd be surprised, like how many people like that I see playing games that are very different to like League of Legends. Like, you know, I think I was talking to someone the other day and they were talking about how much they were talking about like it wasn't, it was something really like light, or although it was like a new, I think it was in Trader Joe's actually. They were talking to me about Animal Crossing. I was like, oh, what did you play before that? Like League of Legends. It's like, what? It's like such a massive change.
Going from League to Animal Crossing is probably more of a palate cleanser than anything.
Yeah, true.
Because it's just the best way to describe Animal Crossing is just cozy. That's about it. But I survived League by not playing ranked. So
I see. That's what kept...
It was bot matches and unranked stuff, and that was it. I just liked the way the game played. I didn't quite like the community, but
yeah,
the community keeps me playing Guild Wars 2, and that's what I remember the most of from when I.
It's cool that still happens. So if you're running around in zones and you're a new player, look out for the little. Was it the mentor mark you had, or was it like the? I guess the mentor or the commander.
It's the apple with the little eye in it. Shows up.
Yeah, or just look for star. Look for Batman when he swoops out of the sky. It's like, I am the knight.
Look around you.
And then, just keep an eye out for that. He might help.
I heard he retired. Like,
aww.
That's what I heard.
So many people are upset.
But I don't know. But yeah, look for him.
Okay, so I thought as we are talking about kind of new players, pardon me, I thought I'd ask quickly about our own kind of new player experience. Now, we were talking... I'll quickly go on to mine. So I didn't really say my opinion on the last thing. When I started, it was it was betas. It was like the first betas that came out. I was hyped about the game with my guild. We'd be massive into Warhammer Online. So we did RVR, like Witcher's World v World. Realm versus Realm, if you don't know what that means, which is what people used to call it, and now obviously it's World v World or server versus server or whatever you want to call it. And we were massively hyped up, and I don't think I remember being excited for a game that I was for Guild Wars 2. I still remember the launch like it was yesterday. I remember being in a massive guild with so many people and just being like day one, like beta, no one know what the hell to do. What's a combo field? How do you run faster? How do you share boons? Like, how do you do all of this stuff, which we only learned after like months of playing the game. And it was wicked. I loved hearts. I loved hearts. I loved not having a quest system. I liked the fact that it was just one main story that I could follow. I actually loved everything about it. It was the best ever starting experience I could have ever hoped for. In all honesty, I'm not even bullshitting about that. I just broke the laws of swearing in the first half an hour, so good job. That's just how much I'm in it. It was great. But I think, my mind changes as I get older and start playing the game more and more and more, and I've been playing it for as much as I've been playing it for. So it's like, it still doesn't mean that, I don't know if people will have the same experience because it's different now because obviously it's past the launch, but things have changed, and even in the last month or so with like new players. I just wondered how your experiences were as well, like starting with maybe Rook first. How was because it is different to mine because you said you started later, so.
I did, yeah. I came to Guild Wars 2 a lot later than most people, I think, honestly, because a lot of the veteran players seem to have come over from Guild Wars 1, or like when the release was happening, there was a lot of hype about it, so they were drawn into it. Some of them as well because of like the PvP and competitive element that was, really, really kind of pushed at the start. So I came into it way down the road. I came in after Path of Fire had already been released, and it's been about 2 years now.
Oh, after Path of Fire?
Yeah, I came in much later. Yeah. I had played through pretty much all of the other MMOs at that point and had gotten like major MMOs that were released. And I had sort of settled in Final Fantasy 14. And while I was streaming, I had a lot of people say to me like, hey, if you love 14, you would love Guild Wars. Like, you would love this franchise. You should get into it, especially because you also are big into fantasy. So I ended up coming into the game, and it was funny because I love hearing you saying that like you loved all the hearts and things, because coming from 14 into Guild Wars 2, I was like, what is this nonsense? Like,
I was gonna say, if you're coming from Final Fantasy 14 to this, it's just like, what? Where are the like? I'm actually gonna go somewhere else and do something else now. Like, I mean, I don't have to do a million things to talk to this one person with shed loads of words, and I'm just like, there are no words in Guild Wars 2 compared to Final Fantasy 14. There are just not.
So much more of it is on the fly and is like part of your like organic experience in the game, if that makes sense.
Yes, absolutely does make sense. Yeah.
I love that. Like I honestly love it now, but at first it was so confusing because I didn't know where to go. I didn't know what to do. I didn't even realize that most like important NPC dialogue happens while you are walking through an instance, because like in 14 or in a lot of the other games that I'd played, it like stops you and there's like a cutscene or a speech bubble or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So I'm blasting through these quests and I'm like, where was the story? And I'm like running around to the hearts and I have to do how many of these to do the next thing? So it took me a while. It took me probably up through Living Season 2. So, I mean, obviously Living Season 1 isn't playable. But when we hit Season 2, I remember this shift where something like clicked. And I went, oh my God, I really like this. And I started getting more and more interested. And then we got into Heart of Thorns. And then all these other things happened in the story and plot. And I was like, so excited about the game, and I started realizing that there was so much more complexity to the combat than I initially thought, that there were all these really interesting, unique things, this interesting heritage from Guild Wars 1, and it's just so different than a lot of the other MMOs on the market in this way that feels just like so true to its own self and heritage, like, and the original Guild Wars game. That I just like fell in love with it. So I started playing Guild Wars 1, and we did, we got about halfway through everything there. We still need to finish it up. And we went into Guild Wars 2 really hard. And now we do all these raid groups and all this other stuff because I just fell in love with it. So I've loved the journey, and I love different from a lot of the other games. And it's really fun to share that now with other people, especially more traditional MMO players who come in and might kind of have the same impression as me initially, to be able to then be like, hey, no. Is really interesting and really cool, and like hang in there is really fun for me at this point.
Damn, fair play. that is pretty awesome. Yeah, that change from Final Fantasy 14 to Guild Wars 2 is quite the change, especially when you go the other way around as well. It's like, whoa, I need to move now. Awesome. Malthanis, how do you feel about everything we just talked about? Now, how was your? I'm trying to remember what the original. There was just so much good information there. What was I saying? Your first experience getting into Guild Wars 2, because you were launched pretty much. I think you said.
I was in at launch. My wife actually bought me my account from her job where she was working front desk at home, and she's like, "You should be getting an email." And I'm like, "What?" And I get here's your account info, and I'm like, "Aw. Thank you," because I wasn't. Wow. It was a Saturday, and she like.
She is a keeper, obviously. You know
install
that.
I installed it on both of our computers, and then we started playing, and I enjoyed the game. I played a Dagger Elementalist for my first character. I still have that character. I am not a serial character deleter. For anybody in chat who knows MMO Inc.
I was gonna say Inc. just popped into my head. Yep.
But I remember very clearly getting through Queensdale and then moving into Kessex Hills, and I believe I was level 19. And clear as day, I remember I walked up to a deer, which was level 22. And I don't know if the difference in levels is as severe as it is anymore, and it was probably just me not being used to active combat and dodging, but that deer kicked my ass. That deer bicycle kicked me in the face, and I fell over, and I was just like, well, I need to learn how to play this game now. And that was like that on top of the
quit.
I stopped playing for the day then, because it was just kind of one of those.
You rage quit because of a deer. That's amazing. Good story.
But it's that and Shadow Behemoth that stick in my head as
Yeah.
like my initial experiences with the game. I actually kind of liked the hearts as they were in the game because it kind of let you learn about what was going on in an area and then it was done.
Yeah.
The repeatable hearts as of now, not quite so great because I'm just reminded of dailies from World of Warcraft. And I remember that grind that I hated.
That's true.
It's like I just like the singular like one-off hearts because you got to learn a bit of like what the hell is going on in the area. They could, do because one of the things I did notice about the hearts is that if you I think almost all of them, save for the one with the Ash Legion somewhere in Ascalon, where you have to do the stealthing and there is literally no combat. And anybody who has done that heart remembers that because it's just a slog to finish. But almost every single heart has a combat option, and it's always slower to do the combat option than the special actions, which I thought was a great thing because, I mean, everything else in questing was either talk to this NPC or kill 15 boars. And that was, again, coming from World of Warcraft, and I was just feed these cows, carry this hay over to the barn, do this other thing. Okay, yeah, sure, fine, whatever, that's great. Get shapeshifted. I was in Wayfarer Foothills. Get shapeshifted into a snow leopard so you can fight the.
Yeah. I remember that one.
It's
go for a portal and do this. Yeah, same area.
It kept me in the game more because there were more interesting things to figure out. And then what Rook was saying about the dialogue, like ambient dialogue, just kind of sitting around and hearing. I mentioned the events in Metrica that I was tagging up for. People weren't following the NPCs as they were running to do something because there was no orange circle. But since I learned early on in the game that NPCs do things and they can lead to events if you follow them, I knew there was going to be an event. So mentor tag up, let's follow the NPC. And that was just having to pay attention, I think, was such a big deal coming from World of Warcraft, where it was just like, find the yellow exclamation point, either kill the things or talk to the yellow question mark, and back and forth and back. And I just feel like I can do more in Guild Wars 2, and that's what's kept me here.
There isn't just this direct path of like A to B for the event mobs. They kind of go around the map and like areas at least. But even though they've still got that, same route, but like there's options depending on what's happening, and it's pretty good. It is pretty good. It's different. It definitely is different. I think. We'll talk about that earlier. Wow, going back in time. We'll talk about that later because that will just be something else. Because we'll talk about what we think maybe could be different. But Zorric, how's your first? And Malthanis, thank you for that story. It's good stuff. Behemoth is that was one of the first things I remember as well. It was so good. World bosses, awesome.
The world bosses are amazing that first time. It's unbelievable seeing them.
There are some games that have world bosses and they're not quite well. I think ESO comes to mind when I think about this because they've call them world bosses, but they're zone bosses and they're just normal size things. But I think that's just more of an ESO thing, to be fair. But in Guild Wars 2, they're like ginormous, massive creatures and constructs and stuff which you just don't really see anywhere else, and they're pretty damn awesome. Zorric, sorry.
Not to get creepy or anything about stalking
Is it because you haven't got your camera on or something?
It's funny. I found Rook on Twitch because she had just started playing Guild Wars 2.
Oh, okay.
Streamers.
You did.
And she was leveling a Guardian, I believe, and I was watching her run through and discover things, and that's actually where I first found Rook. And then I found out she did Final Fantasy 14, and other people knew who she was that I watched, and I was like, wow, this is really cool. How did I miss this? And now here she is. She's like one of the pro players. And
no.
Why are you laughing? What are you laughing for?
We're gonna just pluck pro player out, and we're gonna tuck that somewhere. Cut to me like falling off of every ledge in Heart of Thorns for a million years in front of everybody publicly on stream. No, Zorric, you were so I remember you coming in, and I remember this is what's amazing to me. I'm so glad you mentioned this because it's not creepy at all. Like you were one of the very first Guild Wars 2 content creators that I had any contact with, but everybody was so kind and so welcoming. And I remember being so surprised when I went to your channel and saw that you had built your brand around being salty, because I was like, but he was so helpful. He helped me so much while I was dying. And
it's true.
Well, this is an ongoing story that keeps happening. Apparently, I mean, it's
what
because
you didn't see was me screaming at my screen, "Don't do it!"
Yeah,
and then you did it, and I was like, "Oh no." But yeah, that's the community in general. Is really as much as I am angry, but I've always been trying to be really helpful in the game, even since the get-go. And talking about my new player experience, I was there in the betas, -3 day head start, whatever. I was right there the moment it launched. I made all my 5 characters. I got on my human warrior. I went into the Queensdale and started leveling and stuff because we had to get levels before we jumped into World versus World, because that's what I was told, but they lied to me. I could just went right in. But I ended up making a 5 sig hammer warrior for World versus World. And that sounds really weird.
This is a big top. It's just like, oh, Signet Warrior. Oh.
I was a lazy build when it came to my characters. So anytime someone's like, oh, just do this, that's why in fact, that's why I picked up your turret build for PvP, Jebro, is because I was that is so
let's
lazy.
not talk about that.
And if people thought I was angry, they should have saw what was happening in chat when I was taking 4v1s and winning. But anyhow, so I started in Queensdale. I had the experience from the beta, and I think that's really what helped me understand what was going to happen from the get-go. So it was fun. I think Queensdale is one of the more fleshed out places, but I remember getting to the end of mapping Queensdale and then the Shadow Behemoth just busting out of the ground and everything, and all these players being like, wow, and all that kind of stuff. And I had actually seen it in the beta, but we didn't have enough people to beat it at the time because people had tried to see how far they could get in the game and stuff.
I just want to get past the zone, get to level 80.
And so that first time it comes down to just start screaming at you to open those portals and all that kind of stuff, we were just like, what is happening here? And then you beat it. Yeah, so you get those, and then you get those green tier equipment, and you think, oh man, we're moving up in the world now. I got that green chess piece that looks so ugly with everything else I have on, until you're level 80 and you're like,
I remember getting the sets though of armor when you first level up, and you're just like, I remember the coolest piece set of armor. It was the bony. It was the bone, like the head, the helm, and the shoulders that were in one. What was it called? It's not the tribal. It's kind of got the bone. It looks like a deer's head, we'll say, for Malthanis' sake.
I know what you're talking about.
I
used that one for a while.
And the kind of tassels down there, and it was just this whole set, and I was like, damn, this looks awesome. I can't wait to go further. And then you start going to the dungeons, and you're like, damn, I need all of the sets, like the fire and what's it? Citadel Flame. That's right, because everyone was trying to go for that because it was just exotic gear. It wasn't ascended, and that was the best set for damage. And you're trying to get the Citadel Flame, and then you were going to World v World, and you're trying to get. Oh man, I remember so much.
I remember in November, 2012, doing the carpet thing, seeing in full Orion armor. What is happening?
I'm sorry, I don't know why I pressed that, but it's just an old sound effect. I randomly pressed it instead of my mic muting.
What was that?
That was for another podcast. I don't know why that's there. I'm sorry, that's a bit embarrassing.
Batman, is that you?
That was my first ever episode of the ESO podcast I do. Sorry, carry on. What were you saying? I'm really sorry. It's right next to, there's the sound effect button right next to my mute mic because I was going to cough. Anyway,
my story doesn't matter now.
I don't know.
Beat it, and
that's more like ballers.
I was just gonna talk about. I don't even remember now.
I'm
Karka,
so sorry.
Karka, you were talking about the Karka.
Oh,
yeah.
I saw someone in full Ara armor set, and I just wondered how much pain by November of 2012 that they had to go through to even get that. I remember, you know, because I went from PvE leveling my character into World versus World. I was commander for a long time in there, and that's what I did. I was World versus World. You know, that's where I breathed practically. We were learning stuff. It was all new. And it's so funny because as competitive as it was, there was like so many of the weirdest questions, and it got really toxic, you know, a couple months in because people just wanted this level of play already in that competition that you just couldn't give them all the time because they didn't understand. We were still learning. We didn't understand that the combo fields could be blasted and things like that. And, you know, and might stacking, it was all down to the Guardians. Put that staff on, you better give us might. Like, and then we didn't have squads either. So we had parties and things like that. And it was just this mess. It was just this huge mess, but it was so much fun. You res people, they're always telling you thank you. You go from World versus World into PvE to make some money, and you're farming things, and like there's nobody around you, and then suddenly there's this group of people, and you're like, what are you doing? And it's like the world boss is starting. And I'm like, okay, like that was my experience. It was a blast. I spent the first 9 days like living and breathing Guild Wars 2. The hearts for me at the beginning of the game were like, it was just different and interesting, and that kind of stuff. And servers, thank God servers were split at the time because I could only imagine how how busy those hearts would have been. And we did run into some of those that I eventually went back and did for map completion. Yeah, World versus World map completion, that was a thing back then. And I remember, you know, I was on Isle of Janther. We ended up running a map one time, and I had to bring in all the characters I could to get my World versus World map completion done. And now you get on a new character in there, and you're like, oh, there's a Vista. That's too bad. And you just move on with your life. But
I had a single point of interest that I needed to be on red on Eternal Battlegrounds to finish the World v World map complete right before, and we didn't get red before it that change flip. I was actually kind of annoyed by that.
One day I would want to get that.
I have commanded for people to get map completion in World versus World.
Yeah, people did do
like
that.
In like December of 2012, I get someone's Christmas present that they wanted because there was a Secret Santa. All they said, all I want is to get that point of interest in the middle of Stone Mist. And we sieged Stone Mist so hard for hours. It took us like 3.5 hours to get in, and nothing. We had like 40, 50 people just slamming this place over and over. And then somebody told me about it. I went in with 4 other people. We ninja'd in, got them the point of interest, and took Stone Mist. And you could not imagine the rage that happened that night. It was amazing. And that, you know, this isn't even 6 months into the game, and these are the experiences you were getting. And I mean, that's why you fall in love with the game as a new player. It's just things like that. It just wouldn't happen anywhere else. Like, you just want to have 40, 50 people get together to go do one thing. I just can't imagine any other game that does it the same way. And just, you know, you accomplish something and everybody's happy because we all get the loot and everything. I don't know.
That is a good story.
That's something, like, honestly, that magic is something that I think that anybody who ends up becoming familiar with the game, like, has to almost hold on to, because so much more, like, nowadays, right? I mean, even when I started the game, it had been out for ages. So, like, Path of Fire existed, metas, builds, patches, all that kind of stuff was just already kind of established in the game. And hold on, my city is exploding. So give me 1 second with the background noise. We got some siren.
Don't worry, Batman will be there.
It's okay. You can talk still. It adds flavor of the outside world. I think loads of us would like to hear something from the outside world.
Hello, I live in the city of Chicago. Even on shutdown, it's still the loudest place ever. Yeah, like, even now, there is that magic to be found. And sometimes as like new players come into the game, just being able to say like, you know what? You do your weird 5 signet build. You do it. I don't know why you're choosing it, but you go for it. Can be so liberating, because like when I first started, there was such a mix of you do you, boo. And if you don't do what I want you to do, boo, I'm gonna lose my mind. And it was this like balance, because so many people knew already what's good in the game. But part of the fun of Guild Wars 2, really for me, is just discovering that. And I always encourage new players now. And like I myself will run all kinds of weird, wacky stuff, and we're just doing open world. Because I think it's still so fun to be like, hey, what can I discover about this game in a way that is like that new experience, that new kind of blind feeling around in the dark, like let's put these things on and see what happens, or let's go pop into this content that I've never done and see what we can discover about it. It's so fun.
It is really nice to just hear about all these experiences and just what I think about the game, and then especially to think about it now, maybe think about, I'm just trying to link here. This is what you do, you see. And how people think about, you know, even the new players coming in. Actually, I think I'm a little bit early for that. But we've all kind of talked about these first experiences of like playing the game and going and being, and now we're all kind of experienced players. You know, BirdofChess is an experienced player. You know, I mean, you're there now. You're a vet. Okay.
I'm there, not a pro, but I would say we're getting into vet territory. We're approaching.
Exactly.
Oh, she's beat more raid bosses than I have.
There you go then. That's fine. Have you guys leveled anything recently?
Oh yeah.
Yes.
That's been my big project lately. I've been trying to do a full run of all the personal stories of each race with a new class that I haven't ever played on before. So we are actually almost through it. We just finished up Human Noble Revenant, and now we're working on Char Engie. And Char is so, I love it. I'm having so much fun. The story is so good. And yeah, I'm excited about Engineer. So yeah, I've been leveling a lot of stuff. And I see, like you mentioned, like how is it compared to when I first leveled? So my first character was Guardian. And I think like the biggest difference for me is just knowing now what makes for a more streamlined leveling experience, and also knowing how to take advantage of resources like the experience, like tomes of experience and things like that, that really help you just like push beyond, as well as like really knowing that map completion plays a role in experience gathering, where like if I need something to supplement, I can go and explore, because that's kind of unusual. Like when I was first running through and leveling my Guardian, it didn't like totally click with me until a little while that everything I did on the map in Guild Wars 2 gave me experience. Everything that I did was like an interactive part of my journey and the world. And there's so many fun hearts. Like there are some that are really, really unique, or still I remember them, or like areas where you stumble into some little unique vignette, or you go underwater and there's whales in there. Like,
yeah, I've been scared by that before. There's a jump scare on my stream of that somewhere. It's just like, oh god!
They make me so happy. I was like, I was so excited the first time that I saw them. So now I kind of know what the flow is.
Yeah.
And that's really the biggest difference. I didn't know when I first came into the game, because the other MMOs that I played did not have that. And especially when I got into Heart of Thorns, like those maps are part of the backbone of the expansion and the content that you do and the horizontal progression that you do. So figuring all of that out has really helped me in my like pacing of leveling.
Okay. So you've had like, so you started new recently. What, the last, like, I'm trying to think when I did the level up event, so it would have been over a month and a half ago. When did you start? Because they changed some of the new experience. They actually added a ton of achievements, like new achievements.
Yeah, I was before that. So I started, it was like 2 years ago as of Winter's Day, because I got my 2-year birthday present for Winter's Day, which was really exciting. So they did recently put in those new achieves and things too, which is great. When I did my Guardian first, though, I don't think they were in the game.
Okay, Malthanis, you're kind of like nodding your head, like you kind of knew what I was talking about. Do you want to say anything about that?
The tutorial
Yeah,
achievements.
yeah.
No, that's I do remember seeing a lot of veteran players saying, "Oh yeah, I finally finished the tutorial," which I laughed at those tweets because I found it amusing, and I got a whole bunch of completion for that when my friend rolled a Sylvari Necromancer, and he was just running around in Caledon, and I was with him. I'm like, "What's with all of these achievements I'm getting?" And I looked at the category, and I'm like, "Oh, well, this is nice. Like you can introduce people to the achievement system, to collections, and give them little breadcrumbs. It's a really good ad.
Oh yeah, it is.
Like honestly, the last time I remember the update to the new player experience was when they added all the stuff you got per level after Lion's Arch got blown up, and before it got fixed.
Was that just after that?
It was sometime after the destruction of LA.
Damn,
Yeah.
You never got
The new
that.
that new player experience, when they added that changed the entire thing. And then I really do hope they keep expanding on it, like with the mapping tutorial and what achievements are, and they keep pace, because not only that, it makes veterans have to go back and relearn, which is important to anything in life, really, is to go back and relearn, because you might forget something or forget the basics to teach other people. So when I went back to do that tutorial stuff, I didn't even use a mount or a glider as much as I could, just to remember what it's like to play without that stuff. So
Yeah, I thought I'd show it just like on the screen. I think that is the new. Well, you can't see if you're listening, but there's these newer achievements which are coming with the flashy kind of Guild Wars 2 logo as well.
it has new boosters. It has armor for the characters to eventually put on. It's like 150 AP at least too, so it's very good for veterans. And you have to do it on.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, you also have to do it on multiple maps, and I don't think it's based off race. It's just based off the map, but I could be wrong about that.
It is just the map.
Yeah. It looks like it. Yeah, province, Wayfarer Foothills, beginner experience collection. Oh, there's armor. Oh, eat crafted food. Eat a level 1 to 5 food item. You get collector's box.
Oh, and Reader Geek saying it's 210 AP total.
Oh, there you go. Which is pretty good. Pardon me.
Yeah, that's pretty solid. They also added new loot boxes that you can pick up in the beginner maps that are just like a mighty a chest of mighty boots or something like that, and it's literally you get to choose from all 3 weight classes, and it's the mighty prefix for a pair of boots.
Ah, okay. I mean, there's even achievements. I didn't even see this one, to start being a chef. Okay, that's pretty cool. I mean, you get a crafting booster as well, which helps you like level up there. So this they are still thinking about this, and this has helped a lot. It's actually pretty nice to level up, because we did an event during one of our subathons recently, and it was like, what? There's like all this new stuff, and then there was all the achievements and people. And the one thing is, and it's good that they didn't just give everyone these achievements because they're vets, because it got everyone to go back, so that they inhabited the world, so that other new players that were coming in were like, oh wow, like there's people here playing the game, and there still is, like, you know, there always will be, because you can play it for free. But still, like, that was like, there was loads of people. I mean, you probably go there now, there probably still is. And I was playing Sylvari, so, you know, no one likes those guys.
The sense of progression. It's all about that sense of progression too, because when I started a new account for an EU account back in 2016, I remember getting achievements again, and it just felt so good to see those things pop up and rediscover things and unlock stuff. That progression feels really good. So if they add even more, it really hooks the player in too, to be like, oh yeah, these achievements are fun and things like that. Because really, as veterans, I think veterans sort of start limiting themselves as they get towards the end game, because they sort of forget all this other stuff is out there. And, you know, just go look at the achievement panel. It's something to challenge yourself to go and grab that stuff. But if they can give that to new players now, it sort of gets them ready to be like, oh man, I'm bored. Let me look at my achievement list and see what I can do today.
Yeah, it's kind of what I felt like achievements were as well. I'm not like sometimes I'll have my moments of like wanting to go for achievements, I guess, but yeah, it's definitely, it just depends kind of what you enjoy, I guess. If you like the hardcore content, do the hardcore stuff. If you like doing achievements, just to kind of do what you want. And I guess that's kind of the good thing about Guild Wars 2. You've got a lot of options. Did we get I don't think we did actually, did we? Have you? Right, no, not at all. Malthanis, have you leveled anything recently? Was there a big difference?
I did. Between the last thing I did was that new tutorial. I made new characters. I bought 4 character slots so I can grab some extra birthday boosters. Really is why I did it. But I was leveling those characters through those zones to do the tutorial, and made races and classes that I haven't played. My idea there was eventually to build them up into something I've never done with those things and stuff like that. So yeah, that was the last time I leveled. I love leveling in this game. I love starting from scratch and mapping and that kind of stuff. It just really brings the nostalgia and brings stuff back, and it's a fun system to be a part of now. Although I do think as a veteran, I wish it was a little different for us, but as a new player, it's just, they teach you so much just by simply running around doing things and leveling. So I always tell people, read that stuff, because you're going to know more than the people who skip it, and you're going to be the ones teaching them that. So
True.
I have a level 6 Char Revenant that has been level 6 for a very long time, primarily because I have a Steam Link controller, and I was intending on leveling her entirely in combat camera with a controller.
Oh, I have heard people saying that they have been able to get the Steam setup to work with some finagling for
You
controller
have to add
play.
Guild Wars 2 into Steam, because it has to run through Steam in order to get the overlay for the controller to work. And it takes some getting used to. Mostly, I want to level a Revenant because I have no idea what do on a Revenant, because I max leveled my character with the level 80 boost when those first came out, and I think I ended up just having a stack of tomes in my bank, and before they even introduced the automatic level 80 boost, and I don't think I've leveled a character since the tomes were introduced, which I really just wish they would have a consume all on the right click for those. I would very much prefer that. I mean,
it would lag the server probably if everyone did that. Imagine they're like level 80.
Like I get they added to Miani. Like there's a tab on Miani by the Mystic Forge to just buy spirit shards with tone, and it includes your bank. So if you have a stack of them in your bank, you can just buy. You don't have to go pick them up and put them in your inventory. You can just buy spirit shards straight out. But like those and the like level 40, 50, 60 scrolls you get in the birthday packs, I wish I could just use them on a level 80 character and get the shards. But I think those are primarily the reason I haven't leveled another character yet, which I think after I finally get back around to my Revenant, I might go back and create another Mesmer, because I also insta-80'd my Mesmer, and I feel like Mesmer is another one of those classes that you need the playtime on.
Oh yeah,
just
absolutely,
because of the design.
Yeah. This is good because we're getting towards this later on. Okay, cool.
Is it time for a PSA really quick?
I will be right back. 1 second.
A PSA? Why? What's the matter?
Yeah. Level a character from 1 to 80. Do not boost if you're new to the game. Level a character 1 to 80. I cannot kid you the amount of people who get confused because they're new to Guild Wars 2 or an MMO in general. Use that level 80 boost that they get from the expansions, and then they're like, what do? And I'm like, go back and level a character, because I do not have 15 hours to teach you the things that you're going to learn by leveling that character, because my streams are going to get way too salty for you, first of all. Second of all, it just, they do it so well inside the game. They teach you everything about equipment tiers, even eventually towards the end, ecto and exotic armor, and why it's important to get the runes and all that. That's all in that new player experience. So when people use that level 80 boost and they don't read the stuff, they just click through all the loot. That's it. That's what happens. They miss that experience of actually learning how to play the game, which makes it so much better, because when you hit level 80, the entire world is going to open up to you, and it's just you're just going to be overwhelmed. You're going to be like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what I'm doing. And thank God for content creators all over the place where you can go and ask them questions like, I'm level 80, what do I do now? We have some answers, but the thing I ask now is, did you use a level 80
game from the beginning? Just delete it. Delete that character. I don't delete.
I mean, yeah, don't delete the character. Just go start a warrior or a necro if you don't have one. They're the easiest to level up. They have high survivability. Just focus power, and just read those boxes, because ANET did a great job to go back and be like, wow, people really don't know how to play MMOs, because Guild Wars 2 is so easy to get into, but it's hard to master. It's a very hard game to master. It's really easy to get to a point of laziness and comfort and stuff and be able to come in and do the things you want to do every day. But if you do want to play on a higher end, you're going to have to learn all this other stuff. Even though like break bars and stuff aren't in there, like they do teach you about combo fields and things like that. I believe it's in there now. So like, it's important that you level a character if you're new to the game. Even if you're experienced MMO player, I really suggest 1 to 80, read the stuff, you will be satisfied.
Yep.
Yeah, I totally agree. I have people ask me that all the time, because it is a little misleading when you get that booster, right? And you're just like, oh, hey, well, great, perfect. I got the expansions, let's do it. But I always recommend to people, like, take one class through, save that booster, so that you save yourself time when you decide to make another character down the road.
And so you don't have to go into Heart of Thorns.
Yeah, like,
because you will just quit the game.
And it's great because it gives you, like, that booster also allows you to, like, go into a sort of trial zone for a new class, so you can test it out at 80 first to see if you like it. And then you can choose whether or not you want to consume that 80 boost, which I think people also don't realize that you can kind of do. So like, it's well worth it to pick up a class that catches your eye. If you're worried about complexity, I mean, there are those sort of go-to ones that everybody always usually recommends. But I mean, really, I would say, like, follow your heart, pick whatever calls to you, go through it. And then if you want to use that boost on something else, or you find that the class that you sort of originally leveled isn't one that you really loved, go try out some of the other ones and then boost one, like, if you find that you enjoy it. But it is so important just to kind of level through. And I think that goes for almost any MMO. You see people all the time like, I hate this game, the story was terrible. And you're like, did you do the story? And they're like, I skipped it all. And you go, Or like, I hate this class, it makes no sense. And you're like, well, did you look into it and read the things and try some new weapons? And they're like, no. And you go, like, just give it a chance and let it kind of unfold.
People, Rook, people. That's all I'm gonna say. People. I mean, it's just like, sometimes it's impatience, isn't it? I mean, sometimes people just want to immediately just click with a thing sometimes. And yeah. I mean, sometimes that's okay, but I think, it's like with anything in life, unless you persevere, sometimes you're not going to be able to find that connection to a thing. I think it's an important thing that people should try and think about.
Yeah, give yourself time. There's no rush.
It's different.
There's no rush.
Sometimes people just want ease and comfort, and those people will get to miss out, unfortunately. Don't be that person, everyone. Don't be that person.
Rook's point about skipping story, that just reminded me. I heard a story about somebody who said they just hated Final Fantasy 14, and then I was watching them. Like, did you read the story? No, I just clicked through all the dialogue and stuff.
Oh no, it doesn't let you. It basically bores you to tears while you're trying to play it. Yeah.
From what I understand, he just kind of ignored.
You can
skip. He either ignored it or skipped whenever he could. And it's just like, how can you play a Final Fantasy game? And
it's probably, I can talk. It's not a Final Fantasy 14 podcast, but I can mention very quickly, it can be kind of grueling And there's a lot of content creators that say that as well in the directory, and there's a lot of people who say it on YouTube as well. And it kind of doesn't, when a lot of people are saying it, people pick up on it. And even if you do enjoy it, people still mention that it's grueling, and it's like, well, when you get to this point, it's really good. And it's like, it's taken me 4 years and I've still not got to that point. And I'm like, I'd still enjoy the mechanics of the game and everything else, but it is very different to Guild Wars 2. It's very different, but people, people actually do enjoy that story. Like you say, it's Final Fantasy. They do, like, Brooks holding her hand on, like, loves that stuff as well. There's nothing wrong with and that's good because, things appeal to different people for sure.
And I mean, every MMO, like, there's this mentality that like all MMOs are one and the same. That if you're looking for the best MMO that exists, and I get asked this all the time, and I get asked this about Guild Wars 2. We're talking about
I never
all the
get
new
asked
players.
that question.
Really? I get asked constantly. People will ask me all the time.
I'm being
is Guild Wars...
sarcastic.
I got you.
Okay, good. I was like, yeah.
Okay,
I definitely get asked that question.
But I mean, it's true. People will ask you all the time, and especially with all these new players coming into the game right now and talking about like our own new player experiences and preconceived notions and things, right? People will ask like, is this a good game? Should I play it? What's the best MMO? Or all these different things, right? Where when it comes down to it, every MMO has its own design philosophy. And I think that you need to give the game a chance for you to understand what that design philosophy is and where it shines. And I mean, that's something that's just important for everybody to know as you go into it. You can't ever go into one game thinking it has to be a copy paste or should be X, Y, or Z. And especially for new players in Guild Wars 2, if you are coming from some of those more standardized MMOs, and when I say that, I just mean like MMOs that were heavily influenced by World of Warcraft's sort of design mentalities in the space, which is not bad at all, but I mean, it set a precedent for MMOs for a while. You probably won't totally get Guild Wars at first if you come into it thinking that way, right? And that's not a bad thing. It's just something to anticipate. And the same thing goes for like 14's story. 14 is unique as an MMO because they designed it to be on par with a single player narrative. So you have to kind of buckle in going, okay, this is a story that's being told continuously over 1 million hours. And if you don't know that, you're going to go, what is this garbage when you come into it? So I always encourage people to keep an open mind, give a game time. And that is part of what, going back to our original statement, that's part of what that is about, right? Leveling a class from scratch from 1 to 80, or really having that first experience where you don't rush yourself and you say, you know what, I'll get caught up when I get caught up, but let me just dive into this game, because you can get that great experience of really getting to know a game for what it does well, what, you might want to see some improvement in, what makes it unique. There's so much to find with that, that I think sometimes we forget, especially in an MMO setting, where, getting to endgame, doing the thing, getting the best gear, getting all the shinies, like getting every achievement, it becomes this drive. But sometimes if you just say to yourself, like, I'm gonna hang out, I'm gonna see what happens, then you can really kind of meet again.
Where is this accent come from? I've got to ask you. Like every single time, like you do, there's this accent, and it's like, what is that? What is that accent?
That's my player voice. That's my player voice.
Right. No. Can you do it again? What is it? It's that every time you do it.
Jeb, I went to acting school. You can't hide being a theater. No, yes, I did.
Wow, okay, I never knew that. Sorry, I'm changing the subject. I just like finding out about people. I did not know that. That's amazing. Okay. That accent comes out. It does.
But yeah, like, just give it time to be what it's going to be. And then figure it out from there, how to excel in it if it's something that speaks to you. There's no one perfect game, but there are things that can appeal to you in just about any game if you find them.
Fair. Good points. I don't really have anything to add on that. I just like, every time Reese is like, yeah, pretty much. I mean, yeah.
Well,
okay.
There is one thing she didn't mention. Find people to play with too. Don't do the journey on your own. Go and find the people, the friends and stuff, and be like, hey, this experience.
Go and find friends.
I mean, you know what I mean. Come on,
I know.
Jebro.
Yeah,
Anyways,
yeah. Pay for him. Gold. It's gold, right? 2,000 gold. Is that how much it costs to get a new
for
friend?
real. I have friends, I think.
Rick's that link. This is like, yeah. Oh yeah, I am still friends with that guy. Wait, I'm what? I live next door to them. This is weird.
Yeah, a lot of people, they go into these experiences alone and they sort of just feel alone, even though there are people in there. It's an MMO, of course, but if you go in with friends, you know, and stuff like that, it could make all the difference in how you learn and stuff, because one person may be slower or faster and you could be like, aha, you know, it's that kind of experience that happens too. And I feel like Guild Wars 2 is one of the better games for that, just because just how easy it is to get into, but also just the complexity once you start getting into it too. You can easily miss things, and with some good friends or a big guild or a small guild, it doesn't really matter, you can find a guild out there. You can learn all sorts of stuff you might be missing even after you hit level 80 or been playing for 3 years, and you join a guild and you're like, oh, what are you guys doing? Well, we're doing dungeons, and people haven't done dungeons before, and you're like, well, I sort of skipped those because a lot of people skip those, and now you're doing dungeons and you realize, wow, I really like these, they're not that bad, and stuff like that.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely agree. Like, I think, you know, I think we'd all agree, probably, wouldn't we? Like, I was definitely in a big, because I wasn't content creating at all. So, you know, I was like working, and being a guild officer was like a thing. Like, it was a proper role, and I took it very seriously. And, you know, we had a website, and, you know, I was well respected and as like a kind of almost semi-leader when the leader wasn't there, and leading like World v World raids like back in the day when it was actually like very competitive and very, very busy. And it was just like awesome. So good. Like, there was some stuff in there which like no game had like guild experience wise. And then the guild quests came along. I know all that kind of stuff needs a little bit of updating obviously now, but there is very good systems as a new player coming in that enable you to get into groups, to team up with other people, to talk to people. And it's not always easy to go and find these people if you're just playing an MMO for the first time. So if you do, like AngryZorric says, like you kind of do want to experience a new MMO, it is really good to just jump in even just with one person that you know, even if you're like just someone you know plays another game, another MMO, or just like, you know, fancy car play some Guild Wars 2, it's free. Pretty much. I mean, you know, you can actually do that. Like, it is literally free if you want to play the base game, and get used to it. Which is, you know, not many games let you do that as well. So, you know, well, nowadays more so than not. But I guess there's not like 14 you can't play for free unless it's a trial, right?
You can't, yeah. And a lot of the ones that are free to play, the quality is not on par. I mean, I'm going to be totally real with Guild Wars 2, having played a lot of those other free to play options. And I mean, a lot of people talking in the chat about like, how do we connect? How do we do all these things? That's like a whole nother topic you could talk about.
I could do a podcast on that if you want.
You could, yeah. I mean, there's so many ways to get connected with people.
Don't be a dick is a good one.
Don't be a dick is a good starting point. There's so many ways to get into it. But I mean, yeah, I can speak to that. I learned so much about this game, even being a veteran MMO player, from the community. Like, my community, even to this day, like, I ask them all the time. Like, I ask our mods, our guides, our community members, like, if I don't know something, I'm like, hey, I do not know this. And I acknowledge that I probably don't know everything there is to know about the game, but that collectively we all have the knowledge between us. So it's amazing how sometimes if you just like put yourself out there a little bit, in this community or in this space, or you invite some friends who maybe can't afford other games but might be looking for something, or I mean, maybe they play a million MMOs but you want to really like share with them what makes this game special to you, or you look for a community to get involved with, or a guild that's already established. Like, it's amazing how willing the Guild Wars 2 community is to share that. And like, when I was talking about my new player experience where I wasn't totally sure what the game was all about at the start, like, those people around me really, like, our community and the people I met through it, and even like Zorric and everyone, and you, Jeb, like, it was unbelievable to me how much the passion of other people really carried me through to a point where I went, oh my gosh, I see now. I get it. I got you. And I've loved it ever since. And I'm so grateful to everyone who was a part of that.
That's awesome. That is good to know. It's good to know. I mean, it's actually quite different. I've heard some different experiences. I'm not going to talk about that actually. But that is really, really good and really important. What I was going to say about ask Malthanis about your friend, like you started playing with recently. Was it recently you started leveling with a friend?
2 or 3 days ago, yes.
Oh, there you go. How are they finding the new kind of experiences of Guild Wars 2? Like, is there anything they kind of? I mean, they're obviously going to probably ask you questions and stuff. But is it like are they finding it quite easy to get along with Guild Wars 2 as a new player, or?
He hasn't said anything that he's having any issues. I think the only thing we actually had to explain to him was the /wiki, which I don't think is mentioned in any of the text.
Yeah, that's true.
And that is far and beyond the best addition to an MMO I think I've ever.
There isn't many there is a few that do that. Not many though. I mean, I know Secret World did it in the game, as far as I remember. I think any other game? I don't know actually. Maybe chat knows, or if you guys know. But yeah, if that's it, Jesus.
Guild Wars 2 is the only one that I'm familiar with. I think Warcraft had add-ons that would link you to like the WoW to WoWDB or to what was it?
Yeah. It is what Icy Veins or something.
Icy Veins. Then there was another website, but like you would have to download the add-on, which means you already knew that website existed.
Yeah. It's
so
not like just a thing. And there was not really any add-ons in Guild Wars 2.
But I mean, there's probably not a better wiki for a game out there. Guild Wars 2's is pretty in-depth. In the last couple of years, it's gotten ridiculously in-depth. If you have any questions about the game, or even tutorials or YouTube videos, they have stuff linked in there. So like if you're trying to do, as we mentioned earlier today, Chalice of Tears, there are guides and stuff that they link to from the wiki. So you can /wiki Chalice of Tears. And I don't know if it's embedded inside of the wiki yet, but they started doing that too. So instead of having to go to even a third-party website now, it's right there on the wiki. So if you just get stuck, /wiki whatever you're doing, and you'll probably find the answer.
I was there's a button that they added to the right underneath like the little blurb that they have, like if it's for items, the trading post information and everything. Yeah. There's a search YouTube for this, and you just click the link and it goes straight to a YouTube.
It's awesome.
And I did that, and it was just like giant list of, hey, here's how you get through Chalice of Tears. And I want to say there's probably like there's a lot of videos for getting through Chalice of Tears, and probably I think I ended up clicking on Dolphy's anyway, but I think that was more familiarity than anything.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a huge tool. It's a huge tool. And there's kind of this stigma around like, well, just go Google it or wiki it or, but like in Guild Wars 2, that is such a big thing, especially if nobody's around, to know that /wiki. And I didn't know that either until people told me, which is a good point. I know I've also had a lot of people recently mention that the single player's like story instances, if you're trying to go through it by yourself, can be kind of daunting to new players. My husband just went through the game probably, I might be close to a year ago now or so. And there were some nights where he would come out of the room and he would be like, I have been trying to kill Mordremoth for like 500 hours and I cannot get through this stupid instance. And I mean, that's kind of like a design mentality difference, because I mean, the original Guild Wars, you go through with a party, obviously, and you complete stuff, and like having a party with you in those instances can be helpful. But it is like, I do wonder how many new players kind of struggle with that, because I have heard people say they get really frustrated and they stop. And I'm usually like, oh, ask for help at that point, or see if you can get some veterans in to help you through it. But I mean, I would be interested if sometime down the road, and I don't know if they'll ever do this, they put something in like a set your difficulty kind of thing that you can do for those. Because we did just get that recently, very recently in 14, and it's been really well received. So I'm curious if like that might help new players, or if we think like, I mean, everybody can weigh in. Like if you think that by doing that, we will lose out on some of the teaching opportunities that do exist in the game and some of like the inherent challenge of the game that you have to overcome as a player. I don't know.
That's the thing that you bring up a good point, because I mean that's really, I didn't know they'd done that in Final Fantasy 14. What content is that for? Is that base game to up to wherever, or?
Yeah, they just put it in. So they kind of snuck it in with a patch, like 2 patches ago or so. And if you like fail a story instance or like a class quest or something the first time, now when you go into it the next time, it'll say, do you want to change the difficulty to easy, medium, hard? And nobody realized this was happening until suddenly everybody was going, wait, did you get a prompt about that? And then everybody else was asking. So I think it's part of how they've overhauled stuff in preparation for this condensing of the main story.
Okay. That's fucking awesome, really. I mean, that is amazing, to be fair. Do you get anything extra for it if you do it on hard?
You do not, which would be really cool.
Oh, man.
Like that would be the next step.
That's like the reason to do it, other than making it easier for people. But like, who cares about them? No, I'm joking. Yeah, that's actually, they should definitely. They've missed an opportunity there, obviously. Damn. Okay, I guess it's like, what do we give them, kind of thing, and maybe it's, but it's a precursor. I mean, not many games do that at all. There are none. I think Guild Wars 2, I don't know. I mean, chat, maybe you can talk about your experiences. Your husband's pretty new to the game, like it's still, and just getting used to it. I think, you know, for what that experience as well, it probably would be quite difficult. Yes, going through it on your own if you're a newer player, absolutely. I think if you're a vet, kind of going through, I think it has got a little bit more complicated. But I always judge story on the fact that, you know, you're not supposed to struggle with it, and like there should be a certain amount of ease or way to get through it without, where you can feel a little bit challenged and there's some mechanics and stuff, but it's not too crazy. If you're, you know, you've been playing for a fair while and you know what you're doing, you know. I think that, you know, the essence of you're trying to tell a story still, but then the challenge is like what else you bring along with that. And if nothing comes with that story that is challenging maybe, or is different, or something you can farm or whatever, then that's where complaints and upsettedness. Yeah, that's a word, I think. I don't know.
It is now.
I'll just make it. That's what I do here. Then yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting one. I think there's many different ideas and opinions, but I'm going to move on. Did I ask everyone that question? I don't even know what question we're on. I think we're just going through discussion points now. I was going to ask actually, and that's actually a good point. Do you think it's, I mean, Malthanis maybe, and because I think Rook's kind of spoken about this a little bit, maybe with her husband as well, but like Zorric and Malthanis, do you think that it's easy for new players to understand Guild Wars 2 is maybe we've kind of talked about all this already as an MMO in 2020, and it's like, you know, is it still appealing to people? Like, you know, is it forward thinking? Is it, you know, innovative? Is it still doing things which can apply to people who might want to play the game? So there might be, I'm just going to call this new player. This is what this podcast episode is going to be called. I was going to call it new player experience. I haven't really talked about it that much. It's just new player. Like, whatever. Like, you know, I mean, Malthanis, maybe, like, you want to say something about that. In 2020, is Guild Wars 2 a viable option? It's a bit
certainly
open, that question, but, you know.
Well, I mean, people still play, you know, baseline EverQuest, so take that as you will.
But that's like got some stuff which is just appeals to people forever. Like, there are definitely games that have died, like, you know, WildStar and all these other things.
Hashtag poor WildStar. I think Guild Wars 2 as an MMO kind of has a slot to itself in that the action combat style, it's not. I kind of want to say it's kind of in between full action combat and tab targeting, because you can tab target, like, or you
Oh
could
no,
just
it's absolutely, yeah.
not target. You can ignore targeting completely and just, you know, use combat camera, stuff like that. And I think the bigger deal is you are not locked to a class for, like, to use World of Warcraft as an example, because it's really easy to poke fun at the biggest name in the game. If you choose, say, which was my class, you have a tank spec, a DPS spec, and
Which
a heal
class? Sorry, your mic just cut out when you
sorry.
said the actual class.
I was a paladin main, and I am still the paladin moderator on MMO Champion. So like, I'm still pretty heavy into the class. You only have one way to tank, one way to heal, and one way to do DP. Your class design necessitates the stats that you need, along with the way that you. Whereas with Guild Wars 2, you can choose the way you want to play, then put on the gear that supports the way you, with the class that you like playing.
Yeah.
I can do if I want to do Condi damage, I don't think there's a single class that doesn't have a Condi damage spec. I'm certainly there are ones that are far better at it.
Yeah,
like
yeah, the
Necromancer
best.
is
Yeah.
Necromancer and Mirage are
there is literally no class
but
where you can't do condition damage. No.
Right, but there's, and then even support. What are you doing? Are you outputting healing? Are you outputting boons? Are you outputting CC? You really have a lot of options for a given class. So I think that's the flexibility that keeps Guild Wars 2 being accessible and approachable. Boon Thief completed the support spectrum. Okay, I wouldn't know because I haven't really. Thief is probably my third least played character.
It depends what you like, and you know, there's things like you've got AoE stealth for rezzing and stuff like that. It depends what you class support as well. So you know,
Right.
it's definitely there are roles there for everything. I mean, I've made
and then even on top of that,
support.
you've got 3 different game modes to play in PvE, which is further subdivided into open world, fractals, and dungeons. And I'm lumping those together because it's 5-man content, and then. And yes, I know fractals and dungeons are incredibly different in the level of difficulty and investment, but 5-man content, 10-man content, open world stuff. WW is, I had never played anything like it before Guild Wars 2. And just seeing the giant groups of people fighting and knowing that, what is it? It's 100 player cap per round per world on a map.
I can't remember.
It's like 100 or 150, so you could have like 300 to 450 people all on like literally the same place fighting, and it kind of appealed to me in that part of my mind that enjoyed the giant space battles from EVE Online. We were talking about that in the pre-show, and Rook gave me a face when I said I used to play that, and
Judgment.
Well, it wasn't judgment. It was just like, oh yes, that spreadsheet game.
Judgment.
No, I admire it, but it's very arduous.
But it was, I going back to Guild Wars 2, I really do think that like the flexibility of player options, I think, is what makes it. Granted, the breadth of player options can make it a little daunting. But that's why I look at people and say, pick one class and then mess with that.
It's been out for years, though. I think it's the expectation. If the game wasn't intricate and slightly detailed, I don't think, you know, it wouldn't have kept people. I hope that when people start a brand new MMO, that's the thing, though. If you're not an MMORPG player and you don't know the genre, like it would be like, what the flip? Like all the time, and just like, what is this? Because you know, it's quite unique in that respect. Very good points. Very good points. I wonder, Zorric, how you feel maybe as well about like the whole, you know, Guild Wars 2 relevance now, because like my friend says, there are these unique pointers for Guild Wars 2, you know, and I think combat is still, you know, probably the best thing about the game. Like for me, sorry.
I agree that combat is probably the best thing about the game, but
you can have your own opinion. You are allowed.
I want to expand on that because as great as the combat is, it's a double-edged
Stalking
sword
people is
for the
better,
player.
right? Sorry.
Being Batman is better.
Being Batman, yeah, sorry.
But like, oh no, I lost my train. No, it's back.
Sorry, it's my fault. I keep doing that to you.
Combat itself is great, the action combat and things like that. But the problem with Guild Wars 2, well, not so much, because as of right now, the way the company is moving things, I really feel like the game is getting more into the groove of how MMOs attract players in a sense and get them more invested. And that was missing in the past, especially for veterans who feel like strike missions are something new, but they're not all hard and they're not all easy. They're trying things to sort of step players up into a direction. But that's the double-edged sword. When you start playing Guild Wars 2, is it viable and relevant in 2020? Yes. And if it's like other MMOs, you're going to get to a point where your build isn't going to work anymore. You're going to get to a point where you're going to have to start taking something more meta. And a lot of players that get into Guild Wars 2, they may be too casual, maybe a little too lax with the game to sort of want to do that because they've enjoyed the story so far. But once they get to the expansion stuff, that stuff gets tough. And if you're not able to get through it in a way, you're going to have to change the way you play. And that's really hard to say when the game was built on play the way you want. However, that was just not true. They should have never said that way. They should have said, play the direction we're giving you, because it's more obvious nowadays what they want us to play and how to play it versus at the beginning of the game, we just didn't know better. And we were like, oh yeah, Condi Necro was probably one of the worst things you could have done at the beginning of the game, but people still did it because it worked away from world bosses. But then when you got to world boss, you couldn't even get credit for the fight or whatever. And now today you can. So they do expand on that, but there is a DPS Condi build. There is now a support Condi build on the same class, on the same elite spec. And so what ended up happening with Guild Wars 2, it was play the way you want. And now when I get players coming back, they're like, man, I'm really struggling with this game. I don't remember it being this hard. It's like, it's time to change. You have to start building a new build, getting different armor. The stuff just doesn't work the same way. The traits have changed so many times. And so I think that's what keeps the game interesting. But a lot of times when players get to a certain point, they're just going to say it's too hard or I don't understand this. And then that's where their experience ends with the game. But as a new player, you should be learning things and keep learning after you hit level 80 and keep learning when you get to raids and keep learning. That's all MMOs, and Guild Wars 2 is right there with them. It can give us some really tough stuff to play. It can challenge the players, but it's up to the players themselves. Unlike other MMOs where this boss is like, man, they did some math. You better have this, this, and this. In Guild Wars 2, it comes down to the player. Do you have the right spec? Do you stand on the right place? Do you know when to dodge? Do you know when to do these things that we have given you? And that's what their testing is on. And we see it more in strike missions than even raids now. Do you understand what this boss is doing? Have you learned the things you needed to learn to do this experience? And I think the only other MMO I've seen really do that, WoW sort of does it, but they're really math heavy. You better have your armor, you better have your stuff. But in Final Fantasy 14, you can get away with some stuff too. And it's especially in Final Fantasy 14, it's don't stand there. That's why the marker's there. Get out of the way, right? And as I watch streamers do it, I've never played the game, so again, this is all what I've just observed. If you don't stand there, in Guild Wars 2, you can stand in some of those AOEs if you know when to dodge, and that's what's important. And it's those little things that make players either enjoy the game completely or burn out because they're so busy trying to learn it and they're trying to force themselves to learn it, they don't get it. So Guild Wars 2 is just in that place where it's like, I would love to say it's as great as Final Fantasy 14's combat, but it's not the same. And I would love to say it's as easy as another MMO's combat that's free to play, but it's it's not. It's this own thing that continues to shift and change. When they did the last balance patch for PvP, it just completely changed the game. You go into World versus World now, you see tanky people in there. They just don't go down. And before it was just full offense. You just slam them as hard as they can, and you hope that wall falls. And that's just it. And that's less than a year. We're talking 6 months time here, and the game has shifted completely in competitive mode. So
yeah,
as a game in 2020, it is a game since 2012 that just continues its experience changes based on the year you're in, based on the patch you're in. But as a new player coming in, you don't have to catch up some of that stuff. You don't have to learn what the build is. You don't have to learn what works in this boss, and you don't have to spend too much time trying to figure out, well, where can I get a group for this? There are groups ready to go today. And so it's great, but at the same time, it also can be daunting for those players. But I still suggest people play it because you can put it down at any time. You don't have to keep playing it if you feel like you're not getting anywhere. That's what's great about Guild Wars 2 as well. This game is amazing. The more I talk about it,
he's like, I might go play some Guild Wars 2 soon.
I'm already loading it. What are you talking about?
I mean, I am, but that was just to show the thingamajig. I mean, is there anything you want to add to what these guys have said, BirdofChess? I mean, you kind of talked about it before, but just like, is there, 2020, is there anything you need to add to, Guild Wars 2 is definitely a game you should check out in 2020 if you haven't, and maybe, I mean, you've said quite a lot about it already. I don't know if there's anything else we need to add, but.
I mean, I haven't. I think both of you covered it really well. I think the evolution of Guild Wars 2 is what has made it so exciting to me. Other MMOs maybe over the course of their development, they had a more rigid structure that they completely adhere to, and so you always know what to expect and you always know what you're going to get. But with Guild Wars 2, I think we have seen a team that's willing to grow the game and change the game and do things that are pushing it forward. So yeah, I think it's more relevant than ever in 2020. And I think they are rising to meet what players in 2020 want and need. And I'm so excited that we have this X-Pack on the horizon. Because a big thing I feel like they've been working on this past year has been the way that they communicate their own process to the player base. And like, even just getting this picture, getting this information, getting these blog posts, these updates, we can see more and more the reflection that they care. Yes. Like, and we can visibly as a community know a little bit better what to anticipate. So I think they are just growing and taking off, and that like both of you said, I mean, we don't need to say any more than that. It's definitely a game that is looking forward, and I think has only gotten better over time.
Oh, damn it.
And the other thing with that, as we keep talking about Guild Wars 2, we keep touching on these other MMOs. Guild Wars 2 is one of those MMOs that's sort of like, it's that thing you can go do when you're tired of your other MMO, or it's just part of your rotation. Oh, Guild Wars 2 has new update. I'm going to go play that, and Final Fantasy 14. But that's just it. We talked about WoW and Final Fantasy 14 and ESO. We, well, not really me. I don't play many MMOs but Guild Wars 2, but it's just that we don't just stick to one MMO anymore. And Guild Wars 2 is just a nice MMO that you don't have to be there every day to get the most out of it either. Like when a new story comes or whatever, take your build, go see what happens and stuff like that. And that's what's nice about it. You can pick it up and put it down. While other MMOs, with subscription cost, you may be feeling like I have to go play this and things like that. But I just don't think that's the new age of MMOs. And I think that's why we're seeing a shift in all the MMOs about how to get new players more streamlined into the experience versus like, oh, this is just our MMO. We're sticking to our guns. We know what we're doing. You don't see that. Even WoW went back to vanilla because it gives a chance for everybody else to jump on board. But Guild Wars 2, I really hope they keep expanding on the new player experience because it only will push the industry itself too. Because I really feel like these other companies are sort of eyeing Guild Wars 2 and being like, what are they doing over there? Why do they keep getting new players? Type of thing. Because that's what Guild Wars 2 is good at, bringing in new players.
It's weird. Well, it's that whole from being able to play for free as well, which I think is just, if they didn't, when did that bring that in? Heart of Thorns, wasn't it? Was it Heart of Thorns? I think so. I want to say Heart of Thorns. I can't remember. But that was like a really, like, if they didn't do that, I think we'd be in a completely different place. I really do. Like, because that has helped so many people just to get in and be like, where was this game? Like, where has it been? Like, and I think that's a big question that people ask when they start playing this game. I really genuinely still think this, because they have, and like what Rick said is like completely true as well. And you know, this might be going into the realms of other conversations, so I'm not going to talk too much about it. But the fact that, you know, there has been, and this is my kind of thought on it as well, which I've just kind of come up with in my head. I guess I see last January or last year when you know, the whole people let go kind of thing, and you know, everything over the last year's changed. You know, Z's gone now as well. We don't really know much about the new person who's like generally who's in the new position now. We don't know where. I don't think we really know what's going on a lot in the top end of things, like you know, director, management, you know, game design leads, like who's doing what right now. I mean, you can go and find this information out, but in a way, in the last year, I feel like, and I think this is fun to say, Arena has almost come up with this like Phoenix from the ashes kind of thing, because a year ago it was in trouble. Like, it has been in trouble, like literally in trouble, because people were losing their jobs. Like, people, it was like it was not doing great. That's just the way it was. And I feel like it was like that not very soon after Path of Fire as well. You know, the PvP scene kind of died. You know, there was no more competitive there. And I'm not saying that was driving the game at all. But, you know, there was more time between updates. You know, PAX West. It was it was cool if you were there, and I'm sure some people were excited, but it wasn't a massive thing that everyone was looking forward to. It was just like, oh, okay, cool. And there wasn't a massive amount of information. I'm talking about, I can only speak about my own experience and what other people have said from theirs, of course. Other people may feel differently, and that's fine. And then all of a sudden, like, you know, like Rick said, you know, there's this the hope of an expansion. Even just 2 lines and a picture of whatever, how many lines it was, depending on how big you look at your browser, or if you're on your phone. It's important, you know. The marketing was a lot different from Heart of Thorns to what it's been up until, I would say, the end of last year. You know, there's big changes, like, hopefully occurring now, where they will give us these things where we are like, damn, this shit going down. There's gonna be a bloody expansion, man. And like, there's literally, like, at the end of every podcast, and we're gonna start talking about that quite soon, I think, actually, as well. Actually, we're running out of time. Is that, you know, there's an expansion, there's all this stuff to talk about. Elite specializations, maps, story, loads of new stuff that they keep doing. There's new technology, new tech that they're coming up with all the time. You know, PvP balance, like Zorric said as well, has been completely changed. And, you know, I think that a lot of it is to do with new staff as well, like new people going into new positions, people going out of the company now. And I think that allows for growth, like, it allows for change. And oh my God, I'm so bringing this up. Perfect. I'm literally training in school to be a mental health counselor. And right now I am learning about crisis counseling. And the biggest thing that can happen from a crisis is that you become resilient, and that you go forward and you grow and you become better from it. And that is exactly what I believe ArenaNet have done in the last year. They are going through this massive crisis. They went through this big thing, and there's one of two things that can happen. You can either completely fall down, or you will literally be successful. And I feel like it's that. Sorry to get deep and meaningful, but it's a good analogy. I think, you know, it's a good thing. It's true. I mean, it makes some sense, and I think it's really good that it's happening. And I hope that they capitalize off it. I really do. And I think, you know, with so many new people coming in, I really do think that there's a certain buzz about the game right now, and I just hope it continues, I guess. There's my rant.
More positive buzz was about the game, because for a while there was a lot of negativity towards the game because it just it felt stagnant, and it just felt like more of the same. And now we have a lot of positivity, a lot of players saying, wow, this is getting better and things like that. And that's what I was looking for. I was tired of some of that negativity, and it's just great to see that maybe that maybe that is the reason why these players are getting attracted to. They're seeing all this positive talk and these content creators being like, oh, they're coming out with an expansion. I'm ready for this. My life is changing and things like that. And I think one of the reasons why we're seeing so much of this too is that I'm not saying the leadership was bad or the devs were bad. I think what happened is that sort of the experience of those devs might have been getting in the way of just other people stepping up. And I really do wonder, it would be great to see a study on companies and how this stuff works, like the devs themselves. When your dev lead gets fired or laid off or whatever it is, it's always interesting to see who steps up and says, we're doing this. This is how we're going to have to change things.
Yeah.
I really wonder who those devs were, because I think that's what mattered. When those devs go, I want that position, I can bring something new to the table that will definitely excite people. Then when you start seeing those devs start talking more, you start seeing the players get more positive. It's just, those are the people you want to know what they're doing. But at the same time, I don't want to know who's doing it, because I feel like that puts a target on them, and I'd rather them expend that energy keeping those devs talking, keeping the players positive, and keeping the new experiences coming to us. So like the tutorial thing for the new players, to sort of bring this back to new players, that could not have been like one of the old devs who thought of that. That had to be someone coming in saying, hey, I've recently played Guild Wars 2 or something, or they're looking at it and be like, I bet we can expand on this further to bring people back and sort of show like, you know, those opening starter zones, they can be more fun than this and things like that. And that's what I'm looking forward to. What else are they going to do, even from the new player experience or anywhere else in the game, to sort of just be like, hey, are we getting enough out of this part of the game? And it's just going to be great. If you're a new player coming in, you didn't have to deal with all the jadedness from the past. You get to experience this new thing. And that's what I'm all about. I want new players to get the best Guild Wars 2 experience possible. As a player of the game, a veteran, you had to wait for Living Story Season 1 and all the grind there. And then we got Living Season Story 2, and we're just waiting. It was a lot of hurry up and wait, or, you know, you only had amount of time to do something, to, you know, World versus World got stale. PvP just it just went off the rails after Path of Fire with these new elite specs. Balance was missing, things like that. They don't have to experience that now. If you come into the game now, you get a more balanced PvP experience. You get this uptick in World versus World population. You get now this tutorial system with the new player experience that I never got to experience. I get to go back as a vet, but I'm still jaded because they didn't fix the pickup thing from a long time ago on my warrior. And so now I'm just sitting there trying to hit F to try to pick something up, and it's not working, and I'm still jaded about that. But as a new player, you don't have to experience that frustration or anything like that. And I think that's what's great about this revitalization from ANET.
And I think it's important to note too, and this is just like a little side note, right? Every single MMO, having played a ton of them myself, right? And I think most of us have, every single MMO has its ups and downs in the patch cycle. It's just the nature of like a long running game that has different periods of development, different teams that shift and work on it. I mean, at the same time that a lot of the layoffs happened at ArenaNet, we also saw massive layoffs elsewhere in the industry and with World of Warcraft.
Yeah.
Like, so it's one of those things where, like, especially if you're a new player and maybe you're listening to this for the first time, I wouldn't necessarily ever think like, oh, because maybe some of the veteran players can remember these times where things were kind of confusing or iffy, that like it's something that's just intrinsic to Guild Wars 2. It's intrinsic to MMOs in general. What matters is how the game continues to develop over time, and how like the response is to those periods where things maybe were not perfect or were not balanced or were not. And I mean, this has happened in literally every MMO I've ever played. So I think it's really great, like you were saying, Jeb, to see them coming out of this, and now for all of us to be able to look forward to I think this revitalization in like the creativity of Guild Wars and the way that it has obviously decided to like define itself in the MMO market and what it wants to bring to the table. And I think we can all agree that we're starting to like feel very distinctly that there is more focus to that now, and it does seem like it is heading somewhere, which is really great. Because I mean, every game will develop and change, but I think Guild Wars 2 has shown that it continues to grow and respond over time, which is really what you're looking for in an MMO. So it's very hopeful, honestly.
Cool. It completely. It's like, I think we've definitely said this enough. We're positive for the future. Absolutely. It is, and Rook actually takes us in a great way of thinking about the future, and also like, I mean, I before we go there, I wanted to ask each of you first, if you could give a piece of advice to a new player, and I don't know if someone wants to take a jab at this first. If you're like, for a new player, if you could give a piece of advice specifically, and you know, I mean, we talked about the boost earlier. What do you reckon it would be? Like, and you've got some bits on the document. You can have a look at it if you want. You don't need to. What advice would you give? Like, you know, if someone says, okay, maybe I can actually ask you individually each question. Oh, no, let's not do that. What advice would you give a new player if they ask you a question, for like example, what's the best DPS class? Because no one asked that question.
Oh my god, I hate that question. What's the best class? I have to
go. I have to do that. I didn't put it on the document. I was like, I'm going to ask this question.
That goes back to me saying earlier, it's just like every class has a way to do everything, and it's just like just pick the aesthetic that you like. And
what if I want to play the best DPS class? What's the best DPS class? Because they're going to keep asking you.
I mean, yeah, but it's what's best for you. And you can't say that more than you already do. You know what I mean? Like, the idea is that all classes, you know, should have something that you can accomplish with them. But whenever people ask me that, I always say to them, like, what's your play style?
Well, we all probably do what Malthanis did, which is put our head in our hands.
It's like there's never going to be one set answer. There just won't be. But like, do you like doing damage over time? Then look for a class that has a strong condi. Do you like minion management? Do you like being up close? Do you like being ranged? Do you like, I mean, there's so many different little details that go into that. So really, when it comes down to it, you are the one that will determine what that class is, and your own flow and skills and things will. But depending on the specific content you want to get into, that's when you look elsewhere, right? If you want to do raiding, if you want to do PvP, if you want to do world versus world, that's when you go and you look at things like Snow Crows or other sites that might help you, because then you can take a look at what might be needed or might be setting precedent in that type of content. But for most players that are not like gearing towards something specifically, do whatever you want and whatever's fun. And then that's where you go.
Yeah.
Identify what you want and then look for a class that seems like it suits that.
Little bit of New Yorker there. I like it.
I was gonna say, yeah. It's like, I'm not sure, but thank you for picking up on the New York part. Yeah, no, absolutely, yeah. Malthanis.
My number one piece of advice, and people were saying, you know, watching me die inside as I facepalm. No, this is worse. Read your Goram tooltips. That's all you got to do. Just for the love of God, read your tooltips, because we all know the rangers that hit Longbow 4 on cooldown. Just that all that AoE that's all lined up for the elite that, you know, doesn't have a break bar, and it just gets. And then we all die a little inside.
If you're a new player and you don't know what a tooltip is, there you go. When you hover over your abilities, or read what your abilities do and what they actually can do, whether or not they can give you buffs, which are boons in Guild Wars 2, whether or not they can, you know, give you good AoE or area of effect damage, whether or not they do different things, and it's worth looking up all these things. What are boons? What is condition damage? What helps? What is a break bar? You know, and there is a lot to learn. It's definitely worth reading your ability. Like, I've been making build videos for God, 6 years maybe 6, maybe 5, something like that. And I still, tooltips change all the time. And I'm still, every single video, I will read over every single trait in depth and every single ability in depth that I use and I think is useful, because it changes a lot. And also, it's just good to remind yourself about these things. It is important. Like, know your class, know your build. Have a look at resources like BirdofChess, like Rick said. It's so important.
Well, like, even on top of that, the tooltip system in Guild Wars 2 is wonderful. Yeah, because you take a trait, you have you have like a power boosting food, the numbers change. The dynamic tooltips in Guild Wars 2 are the best tooltips of any MMO I have ever played. You take it, you can like set a trait, go to, like, say you take a weapon trait for whatever class or spec you're doing, you can immediately see everything update as you change that trait. You can see in blue all of the added effects, and it's just, it's so, they try and give you all of the information that you could possibly need, but you can lead a horse to water, etc., etc.
Well, this is it. I mean, and this is just like, you know, and if you're listening to this, you're a new player, and you're like, oh god, these guys are assholes. We're not. We're just trying to help you.
I'm not an asshole. I'm just a little jaded. I'm 31 years old, and I've been playing MMOs for most of my adult life. There are some things that get exhausting after a while.
I'm 38. Kiss my ass. I've been doing this for a long time as well. God damn it. This is how I have no hair. Okay? This is part of the reasoning. Alright, and that's since I was 20. Okay? World of Warcraft came out during my final year of university. How did that go? Don't ask. Just don't. No, very good. Very important for Malthanis to pay attention to, you know, what you're using, abilities and stuff like that. Because if you're not using things effectively, you're not going to find out the potential of your class, potential of what you can do. Zorric, is there anything you want to add?
Oh, absolutely. That's great. That's great advice. And with that advice, my one piece of advice is take your time and listen. Both of those little things right there. So I guess it's 2 pieces of advice. But if you take your time, you're going to pick up on things. If you take your time and just read what's there, like the tooltips, there is no rush. You're not rushing towards anything but ruining your own experience if you rush. You can't catch up to a veteran who's been playing for 7 years. We're just going to have more AP. We're going to have more experience. It's just not going to happen the same. So you might as well enjoy it. Take your time. Don't worry about not being level 80. Don't worry about not having all your crafting professions done. There are ways to do that later. Just enjoy the game as it is, because once you do that stuff, you'll never give it back. You'll never get that back. You'll never get that experience, that fun. And when you listen to the people around you, you're going to not make the same mistakes they do, hopefully, especially if someone else asks a question in a level 80 zone when you get there, and then someone answers it. As long as you read that, or you listen to the people in your Discord or whatever in your guild, you will get to the same point as everyone else. And so there's no reason to try to just bullhead your way through this game, because 5 minutes of Guild Wars 2 is 5 minutes in Guild Wars 2. Yeah, you can put in more effort. Yeah, you can be more efficient. But at the end of the day, did you enjoy it? And that's what's important. That's always my advice. Take your time.
Just chill, man. It's all good. You know, it's like, literally, I can't say that to some people. And if you do really want to find out that DPS class, you know, that is the main question most people will ask. They'll be like, what is the best deep damage class? I want to know, what does the most damage? Like Rick said, literally, you could probably Google it, and there'll be the best DPS class in Guild Wars 2, and you can literally, if you really have to, there probably will be someone who's made a video that says the best DPS class in Guild Wars 2, and then continues to judge it and try and make some opinions of your own. But I will guarantee you, if you go and find some DPS build that literally just does not do much and it's easy, you will lose the whole essence of the game, of like learning it and finding out what these different things do, because you'll just be finding off someone else. And I think that's the part of the beauty for a lot of people. I don't want to talk for people. of the game is that, you know, finding out these things yourself is just so damn rewarding. And of course, getting advice off people and guides are useful and good to do, good to look at. But, you know, at the end of the day, when something clicks and you've learned it yourself, it's so rewarding. And it's the same in anything in life, really, to be fair, if we're honest. I mean, it's not really Guild Wars 2 advice, that's just life. But yeah, it's pretty damn awesome. Okay. Is there anything else you guys want to add about a new player that you think would be useful, or anything at all you want to mention? Now would be a time, because otherwise I'm going to ask you guys about something to do with the expansion. Malthanis has got his hand up.
Just one thing. While leveling, probably focus on gear that's power based, because I feel like the small amounts of condi damage you can get, and without a lot of the support of having all of the skills of a build or all of the traits of a build, condi specs tend to be a lot more setup oriented. So you need the right traits and the right skills slotted on top of having the right gear
to have any kind of sense of power. Yeah. I guess.
So, and since as you're leveling, you know, things in the base game don't have the health of stuff in like Path of Fire or Heart of Thorns. So you're like for somebody in equivalent gear like level 40 with condi and power, the power player is going to be able to mow through stuff a lot faster. So yeah, and somebody in chat brings up, you know, objects that don't bleed, which they've been doing a better job at introducing, you know, things that aren't living entities that can take condis, and they're also bringing other things back from vanilla that can't take conditions. And as a condi-based firebrand, I really find myself crying a little bit inside every time I see something that can't be burnt.
That's true. At the end of the day, everything can burn with fire, other than water, which technically you can do in a way, if you think about it. Anyway, before I talk more utter bullshit, BirdofChess, did you want to say something? You looked pensive for a moment.
I was thinking about it. I mean, I think just to build a little bit further off of what Zorric said, and what we all said about reading things or tool tips or looking into the stuff that you're doing and kind of having that experience. It's important to know, like we kind of have already touched on, but Guild Wars 2 is very different. And this goes for every piece of content. This goes for dungeons, raids, fractals. Like everything will probably have some little difference to it from what you might expect, like that the rest of the MMO genre has set up. So, really try, like if you get interested in a piece of content, try to dig into that, ask questions, hop on a stream, look up some YouTube tutorials for new players, talk to a guildmate, because I was really surprised, like when I first came into the game, even just because I was a raider in other games, getting into raids in Guild Wars 2 was very different. And like talking about the condi stuff that may or may not affect certain things and all this different, type of sort of context plays a big role, not just in raids, but across the board in the world of Guild Wars 2. So it's just generally more flexible and creative and adaptive. So like if you're coming up against something and you're really having trouble, look at like what's going on with your build, your setup, the skills you might have on, look up what might make that content different. Or, sort of feel it out for yourself as you go, read all the information underneath like the boss names and the break bars and figure out all that kind of stuff, because there's so many unique things in the game that might catch you off guard. And if you are a little more flexible in your thinking when you come to Guild Wars 2, before you know it, you're adapting and finding that there's some really unique, like creative sort of solutions there. The idea of there's not just one way, like everybody has said, there's a lot of ways. So you have to kind of as a player expect that going into it, because there really is going to be a lot of agency for you in the game.
It's a very good point. Stay open, right? That's pretty much it's be open to these things. Really, really important to make sure you are. Like, I mean, again, that's almost life advice that Rook's giving you that there as well. But like, which is good. They're offering that information. Screw it. Okay, last 10 minutes, I'm going to say, ish, or so. New player, cool, awesome. What's the future? We know there's an expansion coming. We don't know when. Probably late next year. I would hazard a guess. 2021.
At the earliest.
At the earliest, yeah. If you could, there's these things called elite specializations, which come into the game with every expansion. It gives a class a new weapon. It gives a class a new theme or a new role potentially, and newness and stuff. What? That's a good. Yeah, that was great. That's a new newness. Mm-hmm. I'm gonna start with AngryZorric. If you could have a weapon or a theme on your class, or what do you think? This can be either, you're thinking about unicorns, or like, well, we're talking about MMOs here, and you can think about whatever you want. Talking about fantasy thing, this is not working. Anything, it doesn't matter whether or not you think it might work in Guild Wars 2, and you can think of a weapon or a theme for your class. You can either pick that or something that's more logical that you think will be added. So you go for the one or the other, like to either your favorite class or even just something that might come in with the expansion that you would like to see or you think will come.
Yeah, I got it.
That's like 12 questions, so good luck.
Simple. Got a simple answer. Batarang.
What?
Batarang. Because Batman, never mind.
Oh, God.
In all seriousness.
Meat six back.
I would take any new weapon. Just anything that they can just shake things up a little bit with that one key.
Oh, like a complete new weapon.
Just a pole arm. We've talked about it before, but
okay.
I think they're going to do a new elite specs. Really, their options they're not as many, and I'd rather they introduce a new weapon to sort of bring those elite specs full circle, because as much as I could argue it like a necro for a pistol or a rifle or something like that, is that really going to bring something new to the table than what, the scepter or the staff or whatever?
I want a necro rifle now because I'm just like, wow, like sending out hands and like death from a gun. That would be sick. How would that even work?
And I don't know.
This is why I need to have an entire podcast.
What would the shroud be? You got to think of that too. Like Reaper has a Reaper shroud.
You just turn into a big gun. You're just walking around.
Turn into a cannon. And
yeah,
sure.
He's got wheels and like someone walks you around and they fire you. I don't know.
Well, if it's a rifle, then you could. If it's a rifle, then your skills actually burn life force to fuel the ability. So you're firing the life force as a bullet.
That will go.
See? There you go. Done. That's it. Fire the Doom Cannon. Oh, God. Can you imagine?
Yeah, actually, yes, I could imagine.
Actually, yeah, you probably... That sounds.
Everything's on the table for ANET, I'm sure. So
it's a really,
there's one dev out there who's gonna catch this and be like, Doom Cannon. Now that's
a thing. That's what nowadays have got to come from somewhere, isn't it? I like it. Malthanis.
I'm still very leery about new elite specs because every elite spec is basically a new class. So you're adding another 9 classes that you have to balance among the 36 classes that it would be with.
Oh, yeah.
Because you have the base and then the 3 sets of elite specs. So we have 36 classes that we have to balance.
Oh, yeah.
That's why I'm kind of leery, because what an expansion is elite specs at this point. Everything that an expansion has brought previously is just elite specs. Like that's the last thing that's only come with, a new expansion, so to speak, that hasn't come in some other kind of update.
Yeah.
I would love to see new weapons. I want to see spears on land because there are a lot of really cool spear skins that no one ever sees, because while Guild Wars 2 has the best underwater combat of an MMO I've ever played, it's still underwater combat.
Yeah.
So I'd love to see spears, axes, perhaps like 2-handed axe. Maybe
Like a great
another
axe, yeah.
another ranged weapon type like crossbow, something like that. And my personal ask is I want longbows for elementalist, because that covers the niche of long range single target, because the staff is kind of like the classic blaster mage thing where it's all big AoE stuff. I want my arcane archer from D&D, so thank you very much.
I think that'd be wicked, actually. Yeah, that'd be sick. Imagine that. You're right, though. An elementalist, for a person that's supposed to be like your classic sorcerer / wizard class, doesn't really have a lot of range. It's like, no, it's actually kind of more bruisery.
Dagger covers your short range, and then Weaver has sword, so you have an honest, actual melee weapon now. Scepter is mid range because I think it's 600 to 800 units.
Yeah, it's mid.
And staff is all 1200.
Yeah.
So there's no real like 1200 single target stuff to work with.
Weaver with no, it can't be a Weaver. I'm just thinking about, like, you know, I was just thinking, oh god, please don't be some evasive, horrible thing like in PvP. I was like, god, sorry. I like it. Awesome. And Rook.
Oh yeah, I think mine would be
Doesn't have to be a class.
It's true. We'll add a little something on the end then. As far as class goes, it would probably be some kind of healer mesmer, or like very, very strong like healer support mesmer. I've heard people say bard. I saw D say that in the chat, which I do think would be fun. Some kind of like song or music based, or even something that had a little bit of like that dancer flair. But this got suggested a while back, and I've been obsessed with it ever since then. I kind of want whip to be a mesmer weapon.
Was
so,
it
like,
here that was suggested? I keep thinking about like the whip. Was that you again?
It was me, sorry.
Wow,
but it was also my community. Good job, guys.
Wow.
But
Community.
like, I love the idea of mesmer with whip. I don't know why, it just has so much personality and flair, and I think it would be so fun. So for me, that would be really great. And then my like little bonus would be that because I'm a big sucker for housing in games, I would love to have like a personalized like player housing instance where you could actually like put the furnishings and collect the furnishings and make the whole thing. Like, I think that would be so fun. And I've heard people suggest maybe like an apartment you can get in Cantha, because obviously we have the city, which would be fun. But that's just me.
Can you imagine it? Like these Chars just walking into their apartments. It's like, yes, well, who's going to put the dinner on this evening? Oh, I don't know. I
don't know. It's something where you could, because I love the furnishing and the system that they have for the guild halls. But I'd love to be able to do it personally, and to have like
housing. Well,
customizable.
Okay.
That's you can solve that easy. It's something I've been thinking about, is give Dragon's Watch a guild.
Ooh.
Wait, what did you say?
Dragon's Watch, you know, the Commander's Guild?
Yeah.
Give Dragon's Watch a guild hall, give single player access to the guild hall tech, and turn that into the home instance.
That would be fun.
You can move all your stuff around, and then you'd be able to have your player house.
I think that'd be cool.
Player housing in Guild Wars 2 is very much, I think something, you know, there is one thing that is missing, like that most MMOs have, and it's guild halls are not the same. They just are not. And, you know, not that I do it much. I like building stuff. Fallout 76, I build stuff, kind of, and it's cool there. But other than that, I think I do a little bit in ESO. Got like a guild hall we kind of do, but housing is massive in Elder Scrolls.
Oh yeah, it is, and I spend hours in it.
See?
I am one of those suckers that plays at like I will spend hours collecting every furnishing, crafting everything, like single thing, trying to get all the stuff in there. I personally, that's just me. So like, I'd love to see that on a more like individual scale, however they would present that. So that's kind of my hope, but I don't know if we'll get it. There's no reason for us to, but
I mean, I think there's every reason. Absolutely. It's a massive thing. You know, housing is massive in MMOs. Like, that's a whole new player base that spend money on something. Like out of anything that people spend the money on the store in ESO, probably housing. In all
it's
honesty.
egregious. It's
Like, people pay
it's so much
hundreds
money.
of dollars for houses, and I'm just like,
Mhm.
why? And then, but they do. So why the fuck wouldn't they do that in Guild Wars too? And you don't even have to pay. I'm really doing bad at swearing today. And why wouldn't they do it in Guild Wars too? Like you don't even pay a sub fee. So like they would. And like people have always been like, we have to spend money to buy this, that, and the other. And yes, I agree to a degree that you like spending money on the gem store to buy something that you should get in games sucks a lot. Especially if it's something which is very applicable to a raid and everything else. And you should be able to get a lot of stuff in the game. People have to make money. They have to put food on the damn table. And that's just the way it is. And there are games that get away with this a lot. And games that have sub fees as well. So I think there's something in the Guild Wars 2 community, which is something else I might talk about another time. Where necessarily seeing things on the gem store isn't very welcome a lot of the time. And that could be because the game is so accessible to so many people. But that's another day. So cool, yeah. And also...
Whips. Whips everywhere.
And that's Rick's...
Why do you have a voice command for that? What
This is not a
purpose?
command. This is an actual voice changer.
It's your changer. I love it. Yes,
I
but
didn't
love
just
it.
not a
randomly
change.
make a
That's
whip
his actual voice right there. That's actually his voice.
I think that's
He uses
amazing.
one to bring it down.
I mean, that's amazing that you thought I actually had like a
I thought you had
command
some weird cue.
effect.
Whips. Whips for everyone.
Merry Whipsmiths. Look, I'm just saying, I grew up watching Indiana Jones. I love the
Indiana
aesthetic
Jones,
of
yeah.
a whip as like a multi-tool or weapon. So no weird affiliated with it. I just think it would be cool.
Hey,
and I think that Mesmer,
we don't shame here. We do not shame the kinks. We do not shame these things. We don't do that here. That's not what we're about. We're inclusive, okay? We're fair.
Great.
We're to
Yeah.
everyone.
Good.
You can like whatever
Great.
you want.
Yeah.
As long as
Sure.
you're
Well,
respecting other
I
people.
want a whip spec for Mesmer. Hello. My name is Rook, and that's what I want.
Before we go into what else we want, I think maybe we should leave. You should really
This
come and
went
watch
somewhere.
the video. Sorry.
This
Play
went
Guild Wars
somewhere.
2. Don't let us weird you out. I promise it's a great place. Lots of good people.
It's a good place. American accents, whips, and also something else. I don't know. Awkwardness. Marriage in Guild Wars 2. Oh god, I can only imagine. Actually, that's another thing that isn't in. Yeah, actually isn't.
An official ceremony. Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Rift did that. It's actually quite cool. All right, we're gonna go because it's been like 2.5 hours. We're done. Guys, thank you so much for listening to this podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. If you watched the video or you watched the Twitch VOD, appreciate it as well. I'm just going to run through these guys. We're going to do a little bit of an outro. We're going to sell ourselves a little bit. So, AngryZorric, where can we find you again? What time? Is there anywhere else we can find you as well? Sound of weird.
Yeah. Here
I'll
on Twitch.
find you first.
Oh my goodness. That's it. No more personal stories. That's it.
Come on, that was good.
I will find you. Anyways, when I'm not stalking people, you can find me on twitch.tv/AngryZorric. I start my streams usually between noon and 1 p.m. Central Standard Time and go for about 6 hours, sometimes more. Sometimes we have a split schedule. I'm a variety streamer. I do Stardew Valley, Guild Wars 2. We're playing through Octopath Traveler, stuff like that. A lot of RPGs and Pokemon lately. And then we're going to get back into Super Mario Maker 2. And then I do have a YouTube if you want to go sub to that. There's a lot of openings from Guild Wars 2 if you want to check that out. And hopefully I can get some new stuff up there soon. I should stop saying that because it's supposed to be a surprise. But oh well, here you get exclusive stuff. And then, of course, you can always find me on the Twitters /AngryZorric. I think that's it.
/AngryZorric. Awesome. Thank you very much for coming on as well, especially late notice. I appreciate it very much, sir.
Thank you.
Malthanis, tell us all about your stuff, where to do it, where to find it, what time, and hopefully that you don't stalk people.
No, I have way too much to do with work between work and trying to not.
I don't have time to stalk people, but I would.
I don't. No. You don't stalk people. You just run after them. It's funny.
You guys scream and wave your arms. And
Sorry.
That makes it easier for people to stalk them at the same time.
Each show has got a theme. This is not one I'm very proud of, but it's a theme anyway. It's been new.
I can be found on Twitter at MalthanisMMO. I stream on twitch.tv/MadRealms. That's 2 A's in the Mad on Wednesdays, but I start between 7 and 8 and go until I realize I should probably go to bed. So there's that. It's a lot of Guild Wars 2 lately, though I do play some other stuff from time to time. I often say I want to stream more, but then I end up having to do other stuff like, clean the house because I can't let that go, even though time means nothing anymore. And me and my wife like to go for long hikes. And I want to stream more. I just can't find the time yet, sadly. But the accounts for Mad Realms is Mad Realms on Twitter, and then also Talking Script, which I usually retweet or tweet from if I'm doing Guild Wars 2 stuff for the night. And, swing by, chat. It'll be fun. Hope to see you.
And Talking Script as well.
We've been on a hiatus for a bit, so
okay.
Then if we start picking it up, it'll come out there'll be tweets about it from the Talking Script and Mad Realms.
Okay, good to know. Cool. And then, Rook or BirdofChess, tell us the things, the times, and I'm going to stop talking about that.
Yes. All right. Are you sure you don't want to? I mean, you can take it away if you want to.
No. It was.
Okay.
I added something to Zorric and Malthanis, but I thought about talking about whips would probably not be a good outro, so I've done it now.
Yeah, thank you for sparing me that. I appreciate it. Yes, my name, like we said, is Rook, but you can find me at twitch.tv/BirdofChess, all one word, BirdofChess. We are mostly a variety MMO community, so I focus on Final Fantasy XIV and Guild Wars 2, and I'm an ArenaNet partner. But we also like a little bit of variety, so you'll catch me oftentimes one day a week doing ESO, Warframe, or right now we're doing a little bit of the Final Fantasy VII remake, which has been really fun. I love RPGs, classic RPGs, and a bunch of other indie-type games, so sometimes we do a little bit of that too. I'm also a co-host on 8th Right Radio, which is Gamer Escape's Final Fantasy XIV podcast, and you can catch me around on our Discord. Feel free to join anytime. We, like I said, run a bunch of community events. We are very much a group that is focused on that and would be happy to help you get into game, no matter what game it is, because we play a lot of them. And you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at BirdofChess is me. No YouTube yet, but hey, in the future, I would really love to, so we'll see what happens there.
Lovely. Awesomeness indeed. And I am Jebro. Jebro Unity. Unity is a guild thing. It's weird. I don't know. Twitch.tv/JebroUni is me, and that is where this show goes on. Hopefully once every 2 to 3 weeks. Again, at the moment it's a bit hazy, Corona and school and everything else. But there are 3 episodes previous to this, so this is episode 4. Oh no, actually this is episode 3. Sorry, that's a complete lie. I lied completely. Or is it? No, this is episode 4. I didn't lie. This is 4.
It's 4, Jebro.
It doesn't feel like it.
Long enough.
It's rubbish. I'm rubbish. I just forgot. I'm just bad at it. There are previous episodes about such things as expansions and whatnot as well. Go and check it out. Anchor.com/The Lightbringers, which is the name of this podcast. You can also find me on YouTube. It's all Jebro Unity. YouTube, Instagram, Twitter. I want a cat. I could have sounded really random on audio. Just realized. Go and watch the video. You know what I'm just talking about. Otherwise, you can join us anywhere doing everything. Yesterday I played Beat Saber, for God's sake. I shoutcast Guild Wars 2 PvP, as well as put on a podcast for Guild Wars 2, as well as put a podcast on for Elder Scrolls Online. And that is called The New Companions, if you want to go check that out. There's like 25 episodes of that. Do loads of indie stuff, variety stuff as well. So come and join if you want to hang out. Discord, all the things. Otherwise, that's going to be it for today. I want to thank my guests, Rook, AngryZorric, Malthanis. Thank you so much for watching. What was I going to go to? That's what we're going to do. If you want to wave goodbye, feel free to absolutely do so. You are allowed to do that. If you are not watching the video, people are waving. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time on the Lightbringers, a Guild Wars 2 podcast. Not about whips or stalking. We'll see you next time. It's goodbye from me. And giggles from other people. Thanks for watching. See you soon. Take care. Stay safe out there, people. We'll get through it. Take it easy. Bye-bye for now.